Hmm? Ah! Oh.
Buffy's looking at Parker, who, it turns out, has a reflection, so big plus there.
Buffy's having lusty, wrong feelings.
No, I'm not.
No, you're not.
Oh, I so am.
No, they're not wrong feelings, because there's no wow. You're free. You're both grown-ups. You're free, right?
Hi.
Hey.
I just wanted to let you know I'm heading out. And it's not real safe around here, so if you walk back to your dorm.
How silly of me not to plan ahead.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Still Slaying, a Buffyverse podcast. I'm Penny.
And I'm Sam.
And I'm Kara. For this episode, we're going to be discussing Season 4, Episode 3 of Buffy, called The Harsh Light of Day, written by Jane Espenson and directed by James A. Conner.
This episode originally aired on October 19th, 1999, to an audience of 3.4 million households. Some alternative titles in other languages for this episode were Irritating Daylight in Finnish, the Cruel Light of Day in Portuguese, and The Stone of Amara in German. Okay.
Very straightforward.
Very straightforward. Irritating Daylight is really funny.
That pretty good.
I am gonna hang on to that. That's pretty good.
It's the irritating daylight of the morning.
Let's find out what was happening in the world on October 19th, 1999.
Oh, goodness. I had a really fun time compiling the flashback notes for this one because I think it was, just like peak preteen time for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one song at this point in time in the US is Smooth by Santana featuring Rob Thomas.
I love that song.
I still listen to.
Same. I really
and
like
then,
it.
Number one song in the UK is Genie in a Bottle by Christina Aguilera, still going strong. The best-selling books on the New York Times bestseller list have not changed at all. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling is still dominating the fiction bestseller list, and Tis by Frank McCourt is still dominating the nonfiction bestseller list. And I think both of them continue to do so for a couple of weeks or months after this, so we'll see what unseats those. And then in the US box office, we have a new number one movie, and that is Fight Club, which I had no business seeing in 6th grade, but I did.
Same.
Wow.
I had no business seeing it at 14 either.
Yep. And number 2 is Double Jeopardy. And number 3 is The Story of Us.
I don't know what The Story of Us is.
I don't either.
It sounds schmaltzy.
It does.
It reminded me of a Taylor Swift song, but it's a Bruce Willis, Michelle Pfeiffer movie.
Oh, I kind of remember
like
the
a romantic
poster.
dramedy.
Yeah. I kind of remember the post. I think one of them is sick or something.
That sounds right.
On this day in history, Cher releases the single Believe, which would go on to become the Billboard Song of the Year for 1999 and would win a Grammy for Best Dance Recording for 2000. And it would live in all of our heads forever and ever.
Yes, it does.
Also, the Atlanta Braves beat the New York Mets to take the MLB National League Championship and move on to the World Series. The Braves won 4 games to the Mets' 2 games.
During this week, on October 20th, 1999, Indonesia elected a new president as the Electoral Assembly chose Muslim leader Abdurrah Wahid, 59, to lead the nation. Wahid was an advocate of tolerance. This action is the nation's first democratic transfer of power.
Woohoo!
Woohoo, yay! Democracy! On October 21st, 1999, over 140 people are killed in the Chechnya bombing. A downtown market and maternity hospital were devastated by missiles reportedly fired by Russian forces. We've taken quite a turn in the news.
Yeah,
It's
that's
Yeah,
like, yay,
it's all over the
democracy!
place.
that's dark.
Then tragedy.
Yep.
On October 22nd, 1999, Maurice Papon, an official in the Vichy France government during World War II, is jailed for crimes against humanity.
Got him.
Yeah.
Better late than never.
Yeah. Imagine jailing people for crimes against humanity. On October 25th, 1999, the UN votes for East Timor mission. The Security Council approved authority to govern former Indonesian territory until it is stable enough to become fully independent. On October 26, 1999, Britain's House of Lords votes to end the right of hereditary peers to vote in Britain's upper chamber of parliament.
That's huge. That is
Interesting.
huge. I
Mhm.
personally think that inherited power is one of the biggest injustices in
Same.
humanity.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
the fact that Great Britain voted it out is wild. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's pretty unusual. And Great Britain shouldn't get too much credit because of course they're the
Yeah.
biggest of all colonizers that's out there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is something to see that they peacefully voted
some
themselves out of being
Self-awareness.
a
now.
monarchy and then voted
Little
themselves
imagine
out
that.
of having inherited parliamentary chamber positions. It's remarkable. It doesn't negate years and years and years of destroying the rest of the
Of course.
planet, but
Yeah.
it's okay. America picked up the torch, and
Yeah, we did. We sure did.
we are undefeated champions of ruining other people's lives.
It's just like trauma, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's intergenerational
God.
trauma. We
Right. That's our
supposedly
grandparent country, and then
Yeah. just picked
they-
right on up.
yeah,
Don't worry.
it's not good. Imperialism
No.
is not good, but it is also apparently a very common part of human nature to be like,
Oh yeah.
Apparently.
I think they
Yep.
have cool stuff over there. Let's go steal it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
And put it in our museums.
yeah.
Yes. Scarcity mindsets.
And let's pretend we're
everything.
doing it because of God. Yes.
Oh, of
Oh.
course. I mean, there has to be a
Don't get
higher
me
reason,
started.
not greed. Yeah, all the stuff. But speaking of trauma and having it follow people, this
Yeah.
episode,
Let's get into it. First of all, I just want to remind everyone,
This socializing thing is brutal.
just wise words from our buddy Angel. And
Yes.
Buffy finds this
Spot
out
on,
the
Angel.
hard way in this episode.
Poor
Ooh,
Buff.
the theme for me in this episode, like the first thing I've written in my notes is if there was ever an episode about the toxic sides of dating, this is it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of examples in
Ooh.
this
Yeah.
episode.
I mean, they did a
Yeah.
really good job of lining up these three different relationships for us to
Mhm.
compare. And these
Mhm.
three very, very different men and very,
Mhm.
very different women. And yet they all end up at the end sort of sad and alone and confused about
Yep.
what has happened to them. And it's so
Lots
interesting.
of confusion.
Yes.
For sure. Which is also very apropos of dating during your early 20s.
Yes.
And, forever,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dating is still
forever.
confusing in
Yeah.
in my 50s and it was in my 30s, and in my 40s I basically just had two long-term relationships, so
Mhm.
there wasn't a lot of dating in my 40s, but those were confusing also.
Yeah.
So it's just always confusing.
What, speaking of which, like a question, like I wanted to get your guys' input on it. What guidance would you give people in their 20s going out dating? What hard-earned advice or wisdom would you give
I
them?
would say be wary of making assumptions.
Mm.
Parker has a point
Mhm.
in that at no point that we saw did he say to Buffy, like, he didn't do what we call future faking, right? He
Yes.
wasn't like, oh, my mom's
Yeah.
visiting today. Someday you'll meet her. Or,
Mm,
oh,
no.
wouldn't it be
Yeah.
cool if we could go to Europe together? Or,
Yeah.
oh, I really hope that we're still, hanging out together next spring during like some big event.
Yeah.
None of that, right? He was very in the moment, and he talked a
Mhm.
lot about his trauma and his philosophy on life, which was all about being in the moment and living for today. And Buffy took all of that to mean potential relationship, which I think most women would, right?
Mhm.
They would be
Yeah.
like, we're spending all of our time together. We really are enjoying our time
Mhm.
together. We have a physical connection now. Like
Mhm.
that was all good. He's being sweet to me. So she was blindsided by his whole like, oh, I'm moving on right away thing. But
Mhm.
she also made a lot of assumptions based on not anything he said,
Yeah.
and it, that will get you in the end. Like, don't get ahead of yourself when you're with
Mhm.
somebody new until they say, I want this to be a relationship, or I want to be your boyfriend, or whatever those words are, and then ask them what they
Mhm.
mean by that.
Yeah.
Don't assume anything,
Mhm.
because
Mm-hmm.
and this is true of men about women too. Like, just
Mhm.
don't try really hard not to get ahead of where the relationship actually is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to do. It is really hard to do, which is why you
Yeah.
need friends to talk to who
Mhm.
can say to you, you're getting ahead of yourself here, and listen to your friends when they say that.
And have your friends
Yeah.
be honest, and don't get mad at your friends when they're honest.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, like, following up on that, I think that's so true, Penny. Like, it reminds me of the Maya Angelou quote of, "When people show you who they are, believe them."
The first time.
And yeah,
Yep.
it's a quote that rings so true. And one of the themes I found so much in my group of friends who are women that I don't find in my guy friend group is that women make up excuses for the men that they're dating, which
Oh,
I find
yeah.
fascinating. I would my number one advice for people dating every time is have a therapist. I yeah, like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
kind of have like a hot take on the episode, so to speak, of I can't stand Parker. I'm never gonna defend Parker. I think all of us are on board with that. Penny's absolutely right. He didn't future fake her. He you know, he was a jerk, and I think we all detest him for what he did to our Slayer. Um,
Yeah.
and the reaction afterwards needs to be screw this guy.
Yeah.
Like, who is it? Not what's wrong with me. Screw this guy. You are who is important. And I'm talking all genders here.
I
You are
think
who
it's
is
very
important.
true for an 18-year-old, though,
Yeah.
to
I think
to
everyone needs a
immediately go
Parker.
to, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't he want
Yes.
me?
Yeah.
I think
That's
that's
very
Yeah.
very
realistic.
realistic. And I think guys do it too when they get
Oh, yeah.
rejected by a woman
100%.
for any reason. It's
Yeah.
just, the three of us are much more familiar with the girl side, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and guys, like you said, Penny, 100% guys go through this too. And I kind of like the hot take is I think everyone needs a Parker in their late teens, early 20s, and I think it's unfortunate, and I think in this day and age it was when I was going through my 20s, kind of learning that
Yeah.
of learning like people aren't always completely upfront with their intentions, and you kind of need to get your heart broken a little bit and have it be safe, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
last time Buffy had a sexual relationship with someone, he turned into a murderous monster, which is the most heinous result. But yeah, people are going to break your heart, and I think that's kind of how you need light in the darkness. You need to know what it's like to not be able to trust people so that you don't fall head first into your own version of future faking with someone that you just met, and kind of have that painful lesson, as awful as it is, to hold on to going forward. And yes, absolutely a therapist, and have that one
Yeah.
friend that will just tell you their 2 cents because like as Penny and Kara know, I'm that friend who's like, it's just my 2 cents. Um, and this is I see how these people are treating my friends, all genders, treating my friends, and I don't like it because I famously think no one's good enough for my friends. And like I'll be gentle, I'll be accepting. I can be around these people. And they're on, they have to pass through some hoops for me to know that you're good enough for this person that I care about. And I hold that kind of line. But I think a lot of people are afraid to lose relationships, like friendships and family
Yeah.
relationships, with being honest. And it's a hard thing to do. But yeah, so many people, like, I'm on this Facebook group, Are We Dating the Same Guy? And I know they're kind of all over the country. The amount of
Mhm.
women making excuses for the men that they're dating or wanting to date is kind of nauseating. As me, 40-year-old, 20-year-old me, absolutely, like you said, Penny, I would be making up excuses. This is how we're socialized. 40-year-old me is like, oh dear God, like, no, 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 they're telling you who they are, like,
And
what is happening?
when you realize this truth about life, that like it- sometimes men act one way, but their intention is a
Mhm,
different way, and
mhm,
they can hurt you. And so you just need to not get too attached until it's real and confirmed. And even then, they can hurt you.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but when you finally learn that lesson, and I think I've learned it. I don't know. We'll see next time I get into a relationship. It is kind of liberating. It reminds me of that scene in Sex and the City when Miranda and Carrie are talking about some guy that Miranda went out with and why he hasn't called her. And Carrie's boyfriend at the time, the post-it note breakup
Yeah,
guy,
I know who you're talking about. I
um,
can't remember
Yeah.
his name either.
says the famous words, "He's just not that into you." And
Yeah.
100%.
and Carrie's
Yeah.
immediate reaction is, "Don't say that to her. Like that's so mean." And Miranda is like, "Oh,
Yeah,
oh, that's so liberating. Like, oh, I don't have to wonder why he hasn't called me. That's such a simple answer, and
Yeah.
like I can just walk away from this person." And
mhm,
knowing that a guy is not that into you doesn't mean keep trying. It means
yeah,
walk away, but
yeah,
it's hard to do if you've gotten attached, and so
of
that's
course.
why the advice of don't get attached,
Yep,
Yeah.
which I admit is really hard to do.
it
Yeah.
is.
Well, and I guess my advice would be learn who you are
Mm,
first and foremost,
mhm,
and just because something works for your friends doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. For
mm.
instance, I had friends that were great at having casual relationships, and I
Mhm.
learned very quickly that that is not who I am. I overthink too much. I have feelings involved way too quickly. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just everybody's different.
Mhm,
And I would say don't try to force something
mm,
that's not there.
mhm.
Another big one is probably that, love does not fix everything and is
No.
also not necessarily an investment. Just because
Mhm,
you spent months or years with somebody doesn't mean that you need to necessarily stick around if it's not working.
mhm.
Kind of know when to cut your losses and know when something's not working for
Yeah,
sure.
I like
It's
it.
it's difficult, and that's
Mhm.
why
Yeah.
we have poetry and literature and movies and songs about heartbreak, because
Mhm,
it comes in so many forms and it happens to everybody. And I mean, I
mhm.
guess it doesn't happen to those people that like met the love of their life in 8th grade and they're married them at 19 and they're still together.
Yeah.
Those people exist. They're weird. They're
And
rare,
they're exceptions to the rule. They
but
they are not
Yeah.
the rule.
they do exist, and they drive the rest of us crazy because we're like, you never went through this thing that, like it's hard to
Yeah.
understand, but lucky them.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting to see these different women, Anya
Mhm.
approaching relationships from this like never, like, hasn't been a human for thousands of years perspective, where she's so direct and she thinks that, but she's 1,000 years old and she doesn't know the answers either, right? She thinks if she
No.
has sex with Xander, she'll be over him, and clearly she's not, right? And
No.
you know, Harmony now has superpowers, but that doesn't
Oh,
stop her from
Harmony.
letting Spike treat her like garbage.
Abuse her.
Yeah. I mean, he says he is so mean to her. I have some clips of it because it's
Yeah.
just like, here's one of the worst things that anyone has ever said to anyone.
You love that tunnel more than me.
Yep.
I love syphilis more than you.
I mean,
Ugh.
it's hard not to identify
awful.
a little bit with Spike in that moment because Harmony is annoying. But nobody deserves to be treated the way that she is being treated.
No,
Yeah,
he's
and she's
using
aware
her.
of it. She says, I don't know why I let you treat me this way. And then she comes back to him. And
Yeah. Like
she's a
her-
glutton.
Yeah, and it's because I have it like written down. I'm glad you brought that up, Penny, because I have it written down because I haven't seen this episode in a while because I don't like seeing Parker. But Spike grabbing Harmony was really upsetting, and then she liked it, and then I was very confused.
Yeah.
And so like
Yeah.
and then understandably later she didn't like it, and I was like, see, this is the toxicity. Like this can be a kink
Hmm.
for people that they like, but the kink community is famous for its really rigid rules on consent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, and we're not seeing that obviously in Buffy, and we're not seeing that here of like, okay, sometimes she likes it and sometimes she doesn't. I don't like this because this isn't how, if it's someone's kink, this isn't how this works.
It's confusing. And I think
Yeah.
that there's a little bit of leeway because they are vampires. They don't have souls.
Yes.
And so the cruelty and the manipulation that's going on is like, I think we're supposed to understand Spike and Harmony's quote unquote relationship as sort of the end of the spectrum. Like when you're really a jerk to the woman and she sticks around anyway. Like that's what that looks like. And it's horrible.
Yeah.
And we're all supposed to think, like, I don't care how sexy Spike is, that's horrible. Harmony should get
Yeah.
out of that relationship. And
Absolutely.
then on the other end of the spectrum, we have Anya pursuing Xander and being like, where's our relationship going? And Xander's like, we went to prom like 4 months ago. What are you
He's
talking
like,
about?
what? We have a relationship?
And
like,
and she has blown way out of proportion their one date.
Yeah.
And she has been apparently thinking about it for months and building up
Yeah.
all these expectations in her head. She's like, so I can assume a
Oh,
regular
Anya.
Friday night date and prom is our anniversary. And he's like, what? What heck?
Yeah.
What? And for
Yeah.
once, I don't think Xander is at all wrong.
Same.
In any
No.
part of this. And
Same.
he's actually very kind to her. He's
he
like,
is, and he's honest with her.
yeah, he's very
Absolutely.
honest
Which is
with her.
a huge difference
Mhm.
between Parker and even Spike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Parker is really the most demented of them because, first of all, I don't know if his dad actually died, but if he did, and
Doubtful.
he is continuing to use that as like a line and a ploy for sympathy and doing it in kind of a masterful way because he's like, I'm not just saying this to get sympathy, but the whole living in the moment thing and it's okay to make mistakes. Like, Willow clocks him
So fast.
because
Yeah.
she's just like, no, Buffy, like, he was saying that so you would sleep with him.
Yeah.
That was manipulation. And of course, poor Buffy has internalized it because Parker does almost everything right on paper. He is complimenting her, but he's not over sexualizing her in those compliments. He's offering to walk her back to her dorm at night because it's not safe, even though he doesn't know that she could
Yeah.
kill him in a second.
She's like, I'll walk you home, sir.
He, even when like he goes in to kiss her, he's like, is this okay? Because we can stop if if you want to, and even like Spike clocks it too, that manipulation where he makes you think it's your idea to seduce him,
Yeah.
when really he's been putting in the work to
Oh,
make
and
you
then
feel
he does this
comfortable enough.
whole, I'm afraid I'll be too nervous to ask you to go to the party with me. And
Toenails.
That guy, I can't. Like,
Toenail.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was so angry watching this episode. And I think we talked about how, like, all of us have had a Parker in our life at some
Yes.
point.
More than one.
And looking at it, with perspective now,
Mhm.
mine was about, I don't know, 12 years ago. I've grown a lot. I've learned a
Mhm.
lot. I've experienced a lot more. And I think part of it is that feeling of being duped.
Yeah.
Where you feel stupid. You feel like you
Mhm.
should have noticed that, something was off, when really it's not
He's just
your
really
fault.
good at it.
Yep.
And we get to see towards the end of
Yes.
the episode when he's talking to Katie Loomis that he uses the same line on everyone. And
So gross.
in my head, the headcanon I have about Parker is that his father died and he got a ton of sympathy from people around him, and
Yeah.
probably more than one woman ended up sleeping with him when he was legitimately sad and grieving. And he was like, huh, interesting. Look at
Yeah.
that. Let me see if I can use that on purpose. And then it just became his pattern, and it's,
Like,
I mean, it's a
was
good
his
one.
mom really visiting?
It's a good
Who
one.
knows?
Like, that's another great way to get Buffy out of his room in the morning without being too harsh, because it's like, oh, he's
Mhm.
spending time
With
with
his
his
mom.
mom. Like, his dad's gone and now he wants to be there for his mom. Like,
Yeah.
brilliant, but disgusting.
Absolutely.
That would 100%, honestly, depending on where you are at personally, Buffy is super vulnerable. She's just ended this long relationship, her first, intimate relationship. And to her, people that have shown that kind of interest in her want to date her or be with
Mhm.
her
Mhm.
for, eternity in some cases. But now she's facing Parker,
Mhm.
who is showing all this interest and not being honest about it.
Yeah.
And it's a huge wake-up call that I think a lot of people kind of have to experience to really
Mhm.
get.
And some people, it takes several experiences before
Yeah,
Yep.
that's true.
it hits home, because you're a human being. And when somebody says to you, like, my dad died and it was really sad, and
Mhm.
it's changed me in some ways. And then they're also like cute and giving you puppy dog eyes. Like, how do you
Mhm.
not fall for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And spending time with her.
Yeah.
Willow makes the comment at the beginning of the episode,
Yep.
like, you've spent all week with Parker.
Yes.
And it's hard as a decent person to imagine somebody behaving in that way just to sleep with you and move on.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
manipulation, part of the
Yeah.
game. The thing that is underneath that, which I sort of hesitate to bring up because I don't want people to think this when this happens with a Parker, is that there is a huge block for intimacy, and he doesn't
Yeah.
want someone to get close
Yeah.
to him. This is all a performance because he wants to have sex. Which again
Yep.
is like fine, have a hookup. If he wants to have these one night stands because he prefers that to like the deeper intimacy of a relationship, that is
Yeah.
totally fine. Not everyone wants the latter, but he's not honest about that. And I hesitate in saying that because just like we were talking earlier before we started podcasting, it's a reason, not an excuse.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no woman is going to be able to change him. Not at all. This
No.
is
Well,
where
that's
he's
another thing
yeah.
that we should throw out for advice for.
Yeah.
He's not a light bulb. You can't change him.
You can't change him. You can't fix him.
So I want to talk about that, because Parker is like 19 or 20.
Mhm.
And he is also going through a great big time of change, right? College years are a time where people experiment with different personalities.
Mhm.
They go through big phases. They try different things. if he did indeed lose his father, that did change him. And it is making
Yeah.
him view the world in a different way. He just happens to be being a jerk about it. I think
Yes.
it is
Yeah.
possible for a Parker to grow out of this thing he's doing and become a decent
Absolutely.
person. But
If he
there's
wants
no
to.
woman that can make him do that. He has to do
Yeah.
it. And it
Uh-huh.
might take several years.
Yep.
And when a man
And a
does
therapist.
change, when a person, any person does change, usually the person they are with before the change and during the change is not the right person for them after the change.
Mhm.
So putting your
100%.
time and effort into changing someone, they're probably going to dump you once they're changed anyway, because they're going to associate you with the old self. So don't
Yep.
Yeah.
even try unless you are a professional therapist and you're doing it for pay. Don't
Yeah.
try
In
to
which
change
case
a
you can't
person.
have sex with them. Yeah.
Yeah, don't have sex with them if you're their therapist. That's also
Yeah,
advice.
you cannot do therapy to your exes either. So
People have potential, obviously. If it's a 19 or 20-year-old, whether it's a man or a woman, there's a lot of growth that can happen, a lot of growing up that takes place. So, Parker is not necessarily a lost cause, but don't waste your time
yeah.
trying to don't focus on potential.
No. Gosh, no.
No.
That got me divorced, essentially,
Mhm.
is because I was so focused on who I knew my
Mhm.
ex-husband could be, who I knew,
Mm.
and when you care about someone, it's obviously even harder to
Mhm.
step away from that.
Right. And the more
And
time you put in, the more years you spend trying to help someone become their better self, you
yeah,
start to have this fallacy of like, well, I've already invested so much time, I don't want to lose that investment, right?
Mhm.
sunk cost.
But
Yep.
it's a fallacy, sunk cost fallacy,
Yep.
because that time, you're not going to get a return on that investment. Just get out. Because, like I said, also, once he changes, he's going to want to move on anyway, because he's going to be all about his new life and he doesn't want his old life following him around. So,
Yeah.
it's so harsh, but like being ready to like move on from men is probably the best thing women can do. Like, it's really hard to
Yeah.
avoid meeting men that are going to treat you badly, or women, I guess, that are going to treat you
Yeah,
badly.
of course.
But the
Yeah.
only thing you can do is control yourself. So
Yeah.
manage your expectations, pay
Mhm.
attention to what they actually say and not what you want
Mhm.
it to mean, and be ready to
Yes.
leave as soon as it gets bad,
Yep.
because it's not going to
Yeah.
get better once it gets bad.
Dump
Exactly.
him
Yeah.
or dump her
Yeah.
is like
Dump them.
my go-to. It's like, it's
Yeah.
not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, just
when I've
move
helped
on.
patients in these sorts of dynamics, and it's stressful for me as a therapist because we don't ever want to suggest people making large life transitions or moves. It's
Yeah.
we don't have to live with the consequences, and we don't want to be credited with the successes. Like, we just sort of bring in. I always say, like, as a therapist, I'm advocating for that person in front of me only. I don't have their other responsibilities. So, like, that's why it can be harsh in a session. Like,
Yeah.
you're sacrificing your comfort and well being for someone else. And I'm going to call that out because you are who is important. Oxygen mask on you
Mhm.
first.
Yeah.
But it's really about, see, Parker's a tricky case. Obviously he's fictional. He doesn't have a lot of red flags. There's some, like hindsight, like
Yeah.
Willow picks up and you guys pointed out. What I find time and time again is I'm helping people to look back at the beginning of their relationship when they were just getting to know each other. That is the honeymoon period. That first 6 months, especially, we're not even that person. None of us are. It's like a prolonged job interview. If you're
Yeah.
getting red flags during the honeymoon phase, dump them. That is the best
Yeah.
this person's behavior is ever going to be. Stop making excuses. You can bring it up and have a conversation, but if they keep doing it, cut ties and let them go, because every single person has been able to
Yeah.
look back and be like, oh yeah, that was a red flag. Stop ignoring the red flags. Stop
Yeah.
tolerating the red flags, which happens when we've gone through Parker's and other types
Yep.
of trauma. We tolerate it when our gut instinct is going to tell us more. But
Well,
yeah, it's he can change if he wants to. There's a joke that at least the therapist I work with like, which is how many therapists does it take to change a light bulb?
huh.
Just one, but the light bulb has to want to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cute. Well, and that's why I say like getting to know yourself is so important, and that's that's a lifelong
Oh, it
process.
is. Yeah.
But being okay and being comfortable on your own is
Mhm.
something that was really instilled in me, especially by my dad
Mm.
growing up. Like no man, no person is worth your peace, and they're not competing with other suitors, other potential
Mhm.
partners. They're competing with the solace that you have on your own and
Absolutely.
your independence. And
Mhm.
the older I get, the more that I'm like, you know what, hell yeah, like
Yeah.
I love being by
I
myself. I need
know.
someone that adds to my life.
Mhm.
If I'm gonna let you in and disrupt my peace and
Mhm.
my time by myself, then it has to be worth it. And
Yeah.
when you look at dating through that lens, it changes everything.
Absolutely. I kind of joke about it, but I'm like, I think because some of the like women around like in this dating circles will be like, let's go to the boat show or something and see if there's
Oh
any
yeah.
single people there. And I'm like, I think I just should park myself outside of a therapist office and then
Yeah.
just
I
look at
know.
who doesn't have a wedding ring. Because like I am not a rehabilitation vehicle for people who haven't done their therapy anymore. So it's like
Yeah.
this is show me your therapy receipts. That's what I want.
That is
Um
such a
like
green
you've been
flag.
yeah, you show me you've been working on yourself and that you'll have an expert to go and talk to when we have an argument because like you need to
Mhm.
do your insight work and I
And
do mine. We'll meet in the
yeah.
middle.
Also, I don't want to meet someone whose life is about boat shows. So meeting someone at a boat show is like not going to be the best
Good
fit for
point.
me. It's like
Yeah.
I've had the advice so often, go to a sports bar. I'm like, but I don't like those kind of
Why?
guys.
I don't
Like
like
that's
sports.
my not my
Yeah.
thing. If I'm going to randomly meet someone who's right for me, it's going to be
Mhm.
at an art museum
I was just thinking that for
or
you.
like
Yeah.
a festival of something. It's going to be
I was
Yeah.
about to say a baseball game, but that's just me.
yeah.
And
See,
that's yeah.
that would be a good guy for you, but
Yeah.
not for
Good
me.
for you, Kara.
Yeah.
And it's not like I don't like guys who like sports, but like I just don't
Yeah.
think a sports bar is where I'm gonna meet my soulmate.
Right.
No, yeah, no, it's just not gonna happen. But that sort of reminds me. So like as we're talking about harmony, and I had like an
Oh,
idea when I
harmony.
was watching the episode. Mercedes McNabb was born in March of 1980,
Yes!
and
I looked that up
yeah,
too.
so this was probably filmed in the summer of 1999. So she was barely 18 in those scenes, and I have
And
this like
how old
vague
was
memory.
James Marsters?
Yeah, he was so uncomfortable doing it, and I get why. She was barely 18.
He was double her age.
Yeah.
Oh,
And if
like
you
Like,
add
and
his vampire age,
ugh.
he's
he's
like
Yeah.
like well,
It's
it's always
creepy
creepy with
on all
vampires.
oh
levels.
Yeah.
gosh,
And
so
James
much.
Marsters seems like such a good human. Like he's
Yeah.
expressed a lot of discomfort about some of the things that they've had
Yes.
Spike do, and
Yes.
we'll talk about that in the future for sure. But it's so
It's really
icky.
icky. And I think
Like,
we're supposed to find it icky.
yes.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that Mercedes
She's
McNabb
not
is doing an absolutely amazing job. She
I
is
love
so
Harmony.
underrated as an actor because
Oh my
Harmony
gosh,
is
I know.
annoying. I think a lot of people miss the fact that Mercedes McNabb is just crushing it as
She's
Harmony.
Yep.
so good.
Her comedic timing is
Oh my
Yeah,
unparalleled.
gosh.
she's so
Like
funny. She's
it's
so funny. And
Yeah.
brilliant.
the contrast between her like pretty teenage girl face and her vampire face is delightful.
I
And
know.
I love how she dresses. I love the way the character
Yes.
dresses in like lots of
So great.
shimmery, pink, sparkly
That
clothes.
outfit that she is in, I wrote this in all caps, when they show up at that frat party and she's got her hair like French braided off to one side with, the black top and the pink
Oh, and
skirt.
the sleeves.
I
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes. Obsessed. She looks
She
spectacular, and the
does.
way that they did her makeup too, like she just looks so fierce. But then you see Spike kind of shutting her down.
yeah.
So much.
I really
And
Damn it,
wish
Spike.
that we got to hear the story of how they met. I would love to know
know.
because
I do too.
it's Buffy's line, "Would you lose a bet?" is so funny, right?
Yeah.
It's
I loved how she's like, hey!
yeah, and it's even funnier after.
Harmony's a vampire? She must be dying without a reflection.
She just made me so mad. My boyfriend's gonna beat you up.
My boyfriend?
Well, I mean, if you believe her. She always lied about stuff like that. Oh, he goes to another school. You wouldn't know him.
Well, Devin dated her for a while, but she was too flaky for him, which stopped Marvel at the concept.
Guy dating Harmony dead. Must be like the most tolerant guy in the world.
So
And
funny.
That
it's
was
Spike. The reveal
such
that
a
it's
great thing.
Spike is so
Yep.
great because it's the double meaning of like, oh, that's not the most tolerant guy in the world. 2, where's Drusilla? I guess they're not still together. 3,
Yeah.
Spike is back. Like it was. I remember seeing this episode live
excited.
and being like, oh, Spike is back because they didn't spoil it in advance, or at least I didn't know he was coming back.
They didn't.
No.
They were very careful not to spoil
And
it.
it was
so
such a
fun.
great reveal.
Well, just look at the juxtaposition of how Spike kind of revered Drusilla and put her up on a
Yeah.
pedestal, and how he seems ready to kill Harmony when she calls Drusilla Dorcas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And
again, a choice he's
Whew.
making.
Yep.
He's making
And
so many choices.
He
Kara,
makes
you're-
her say Drusilla's name while they're like about to have sex. It is so demeaning
Yeah.
for Harmony
Mhm.
that he's still hung up on his ex, and it couldn't be more clear that she is a convenience only for him.
Yes.
And that he is just using her for sex and finds her annoying. He's mean as anything to her, and she lets him be, and it's disturbing. And you have to keep reminding yourself they're vampires, they don't have souls. They're vampires, they don't have souls, because you want to hate both of them so much.
The part where like towards the end when the Scoobies are in the cave, I guess, and you first see her and she's in vamp face and you're like, oh, she's gonna get for a fight, and then her face softens and she's like, I was like, oh my gosh, this actress is amazing. Like I went from
She
like,
is.
oh, vampire to, oh, like you feel sorry for her. So again, just Mercedes McNabb, like you were saying, is such an amazing actress. But Kara, when when you and Penny were talking about her outfit, it made me laugh when the actress was when they were trying to run away from Buffy, and Harmony tries to jump over the couch in that long tight skirt, and I
She
was
has to
cracking
sort of
up. I'm like,
pivot. Yeah.
I was like, not even vamps could
That was so funny.
move in those skirts.
I
have a
remember
very
those
visceral
skirts
memory.
They look
being
great,
in
but they're not
fashion,
practical.
and
Yeah.
Willow was also wearing a long straight skirt, and
Yep.
Giles and Xander had to lift her into the crypt. Like she couldn't.
Yep.
I'm like, that is the worst demon hunting outfit ever. You're so
know.
immobile in those
Those
skirts.
long, silk or satin skirts are kind of back right now.
I know.
They're
I don't like
so
my legs
hard
being
to
forced
wear.
to be together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want
you might as well be a mermaid, like just with
Yeah.
one leg. It's not a look that I tried on some skirts like that back in the day, and I was like, I feel claustrophobic in this, and so it's not a style I ever adopted. And it didn't
Yes.
last that long at the end of the 90s, because I
Thank
think a lot
goodness.
of people were like, oh, I can't even barely walk in this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, and you add
Well,
high
and-
heels to the mix and forget about it.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, then you could not move at all.
I keep going back to thinking about how Spike treats Harmony. And I think seeing this when I was much younger, like 12, it was more, I focused more on the comedic aspects of their relationship and how, Spike was just evil because he's a vampire and that was that. But looking at it now, like how abusive he actually is towards her, the fact that he tries to kill her and he doesn't know she's got the Gem of Amara on, like that is pretty intense.
Yep, and that is like, for me, it was a haunting aspect of toxic relationships that are abusive like that. It does escalate. And
Yep.
that's the dangerous part of it, especially if they are physically abusive. Your life is in danger.
Yeah.
And so like
Yeah.
it is that sort of thing where like, oh, they fully went, I get it, like they were, trying to do a
Yeah.
jump scare for the Gem of Amara. But I'm like, yeah, no, that is how this works. Like, unfortunately, it does lead to, death and murder. It's a
Yeah.
really
And
scary
it's not
thing. So,
like
like, for me, I was like,
murderer
oh,
is new to Spike. So anybody who gets into a relationship
yeah.
with, I mean, in this case, he's a literal vampire, but
Yeah.
there are emotional vampires out there among us.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to know, if you get into a relationship with one of them, eventually they're going to stake you through the heart. And
Yep.
it's going to be ugly.
I will say,
Yep.
I do not think it is a coincidence that the healthiest relationship out of the 3 is the one where honesty is at the forefront, where you have
Mm-hmm.
poor Anya trying to figure out how to be human and deal with these
Mm-hmm.
hormones. But Xander is also straightforward with her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I
Yeah.
don't really blame him for sleeping with her because, one, I mean, he's a male, she's fully consenting.
Yeah, they
He
both
is,
wanted it. So what?
yeah,
Go
like,
go get it.
I love that he, like, I know it was a gag for the show, but how he had already put the straw in her little, like, cran apple juice and
I was
turns
like,
around and
Yes.
just,
Oh my God.
yeah,
So
choices.
oh,
It was
funny.
so well done.
And there was a
But
great edit moment where it goes from Spike and Harmony like going back and forth about they're about to have sex, and then it cuts to Anya saying, and then it's concluded with both parties, satisfied. And it's such a
Mhm.
Yeah.
funny cut. It's such a good cut that you sort of miss the
Yeah.
fact that Anya is propositioning Xander, and he is standing there in complete shock about it. And then
He's
he has
so
this
funny.
amazing line. Here, I got it.
What you're talking about, well, and I'm actually turning into a woman as I say this,
Okay.
but it's about
There you go, Xander.
expressing something and accepting consequences.
Oh, I have condoms. Some are black.
That's very considerate.
I like you. You're funny and you're nicely shaped, and frankly, it's ludicrous to have these interlocking bodies and not interlock. Please remove your clothing now.
And the amazing thing? Still more romantic than Faith.
No.
That interaction
Was very
changed
cute.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I liked it. Like,
Yeah.
it's like so close, Xander. You're so close to having a normal
Yeah.
conversation.
I know.
Yes,
It's
a
like,
woman thing. Yeah, Jesus Christ. But
Except for that part, the rest of that
Yeah.
conversation is actually really cute. The interlocking bodies
yes.
is
Very
such a
so
funny
funny.
way to put it. And then
you're nicely shaped.
still more romantic than Faith. It is, because
know.
Faith, like, I mean, I don't think that he was unconsenting in that scenario,
Yeah, no.
but
Yeah.
No.
there was no real moment of decision making for Xander. Like, Faith is like,
Yeah.
"Are you up for it?" And he says yes, and then it's like, bam, she's completely in control, and
Yeah.
he's just along for the ride. And then she throws him out of her motel room, and he's like, he doesn't even have his pants back on, and he's like, I just had sex. And
There's
The
no
reality
intimacy.
yeah,
and the consequences of that type of casual sex hit him.
after, yeah,
He, and I think a lot of, especially, I don't want to speak for teenage boys, but I'm assuming that at that age, like, an attractive girl comes onto you and wants to have sex with you, like, a lot of guys would be like, oh, this is what I've been
yeah.
thinking about, this is what I've been wanting. And it's a reality check for Xander,
Mm-hmm.
where he's just like, oh, it
Yeah.
does not feel good to be used.
No,
Like,
not
that,
at all. It made an object. Like,
Yeah.
what?
that, yeah.
And then this
like,
moment with Anya, he's being used again in a way, but he has
Yeah.
so much more agency
Mhm.
because
Yes.
she's not threatening violence, and she's not throwing him around, and she's not scary in the same way. And
Yeah.
then I love it after they're done and they're putting their clothes back on, and it's all awkward, and she's like, "All right, I'm over you." And he says, "Okay," like a question mark. And
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
gets so mad at him. And
It's so funny.
I have so much sympathy for him in that moment because he's
I
like,
know.
I'm just trying to give you what you asked for.
Yep.
Yeah, this is
He
also
looks so
like,
confused.
yeah, like we gotta say the things. Like you gotta say it too. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, no one's a mind reader, at least not these characters or most humans in real life.
Also, I think a lot of people overestimate their ability to have meaningless casual sex.
Yes.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think
Men
that,
men and women.
yeah,
Yep.
that it's a natural part of our biology that sexual intimacy creates a connection. You feel it.
Yeah,
It's your
chemical
it's a
bond.
chemistry
Mhm.
thing. It's your hormones, it's the, the fluids in your body, it's the electrical signals your brain gets that tell you that you should bond to the person that you're having sex with. That is part of
Mhm.
evolution. It's part of how, people are safe. And I think a lot of people think that they can have sex without emotion and they try to do it. And then, like Anya, they're like, oh, wait, that didn't
That
didn't work at
Yeah.
all. Now I'm more attached. And
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to go into an experience with one expectation for yourself and then come out of
Right.
it having been wrong about yourself. That's
Poor
rough.
Anya.
Well, it's
She has a lot of learning
yeah, well, I
and
mean,
experiencing.
we learn more about her of like I'm pretty sure her marriage was arranged when she was a human. It was like 1,000 years ago or something. But
Very different.
I mean,
yeah,
she was
like
probably sold for geese or something. Like,
yeah, exactly. So that sort of reminds me of when Willow goes running up to Buffy and is like she wants to hear all about Buffy having sex with Parker. And I was like, God, I remember being that excited about sex involving men or dating men in general. And I'd
yeah.
be like,
I
hey,
know.
how was the sex? How was it? No, it's just I just have like after all this experience with me, with my friends, I'm like, how was it? Was it actually satisfactory? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
because like it sort of reminds me of that joke, and I think unfortunately we've socialized men to be this way too, of heterosexual men tend to have higher numbers of sexual partners because no one's having repeat performances. And like that is such like a disservice to everyone who wants to engage in heterosexual sex because women will tell you the more you have sex with a partner, the better both of you get at understanding each
Yeah.
other's cues, and it actually gets better.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like, well, you just want your number. You don't want to actually have some of the best sex you've ever had. Like,
It's true. The
Yeah.
first time with a new partner can be good, but it's rarely as good as it
Mind-blowing.
can be.
yeah,
And it's always confused me, like the idea of a one night stand. I'm always like, what about like a 3-night stand?
yeah,
Like, I'm not
friends
looking
with
for long
benefits.
term. Like, if I could
Yeah,
have
Friends
my
with
version,
benefits when done
yeah,
right
of
is
casual
at a top
sex,
tier.
it would be
yes,
more like
very much so.
flings and not one night
Yeah,
stands. Or a friends
yeah,
with benefits. Unfortunately, a lot of men interpret friends with benefits as free hooker and not
Yeah.
the friend part.
Yeah, the friendship part is kind of key. Like you have to actually respect
Yeah.
this
yeah.
person
You have
as a
intimacy through
human.
friendship too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just not have romantic expectations,
Mhm.
but enjoy
Exactly.
having sex with
Yeah,
someone. And it is really rare and really hard for those to work. And
Very
I
true.
think
yeah,
a lot of people want that, but can't actually do it because the attachment
Yeah.
happens. It really does.
yeah.
Yeah.
And life is hard. It's nice to have someone
It'll
that you can rely
sneak up
on.
on you.
Yeah. And stuff in
Yeah.
your life will happen. Like I was in a casual relationship with someone and when my dad died and I was a mess
Oh yeah.
and I needed support and he was like, that's not what I'm here for. And I was like, you're
Yeah.
right. That was never part of our deal. Like, I get
Yeah.
it. And I was like, so I can't see you anymore because I'm going to want
Yeah,
more
of
from
course.
you. And he was like, what? No
Inevitably.
more sex? And I was like, I can't live in the middle right now. Like, my
Yeah.
life is
Yeah,
different than it was when we started this. So I'm sorry,
absolutely.
you're a nice guy.
Yeah,
Goodbye. And
100%.
that was the end of it. But um it was really hard for me to make that call because I desperately wanted somebody to just hold me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
That's a
it was
really
hard.
big sign of strength, being able to actually know that
Absolutely.
about where you were at that point.
Honestly, I
in time
think
and
I
being able
learned
to
that
do it.
from there's a future episode of Buffy where she admits to being needy, and the other person in that scene is like, I can handle you being needy, go ahead. But
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
And I think
I have a
that
totally different viewpoint on that character now, watching it as an adult. So
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see when we get there.
But I think that scene actually really helped me in that moment where I was like, oh, I recognize what's happening. I'm going through what Buffy went through. I'm needy right now. And this person is not the right person to project that need onto because he cannot do it.
So
Well,
speaking of
it's
like,
so-
go ahead.
Go on.
No,
No, mine's like a very tangential.
Oh, well,
point.
mine is a bit, but like when I was watching the show, that sort of reminds me of the song that Parker and Buffy were dancing to, "Lucky" by
I
Biff
love
Naked.
that song.
Good
I love that song so much, and it was like in a way like Parker didn't gaslight Buffy, but Biff did.
Yeah.
Like she's singing "We Are the Lucky Ones" and just like, you know, after everything Buffy's been through and stuff, and I love that song, and also like come on, Biff. I mean, she couldn't have known, but like that is just, you know, sort of knowing of like, you Buffy, you have a whole life ahead of you, and well, maybe, but like this whole experience behind you, that's not Parker though.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you are lucky to have survived a drowning, to have survived high school graduation and everything. Not lucky to have found him necessarily. Like, it's a weird. You've only known him for a week.
But that's the thing. Everything has been so life or death with her. Everything is such high stakes
I know
that you can't really fault her for going all in with Parker, because that's how
true.
things have been. And it's just, I hate watching her beat herself up.
Okay,
but
I have a whole tangent on that.
Awesome.
I can wait on that. We've already talked a bit about it, but yeah, like it is really hard seeing her beat herself up. And
I just want to be like, Buffy, you are spectacular. Like,
yes,
you have like so much going for you. Like, this guy is inconsequential.
Yeah,
I
like,
get it.
It's just like, yeah, like I'm watching this and I get it. Like Penny, I think you made a good point of like, these are 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and that's a group of like, okay, I have to be back in there. And I just like put notes of like,
cortexes are not done.
like here we go.
They're
And
not
it's
fully
like,
cooked.
ladies and gents, don't start with, did I do something wrong? Start with, what's happening to this person?
Yeah.
Like saying like, what's going on? What's happening? Don't immediately assume you did something wrong. They're the one that's acting different. So say like, what's happening? What's going on? What's going on with you right now? You're acting different. The fact that she immediately goes into, I did something wrong, and she did that with Angel too when he was Angelus. And as we know, just like
when
last
she
time,
was like, was
not
I
about you,
not
but
good?
like like it's
That kills
not
me.
like it's not you, and that is very fair. Like, and don't get sad. Get angry. Be sad later, but like be angry of like, what is this?
He said he would call her, and he didn't.
Yeah, be mad about that. What are you doing right now? Like,
that's not on you.
Yeah.
And she was vulnerable. I get it. Like, she was very vulnerable with him. It's this sexual intimacy is still
100%.
new to her.
But get
Right? This is
mad.
only the second time she's ever had sex.
Yeah,
She's
and it's
Poor
like,
Buffy.
like now you're ditching me and all this stuff, and it's like, be mad. He's not being like, you know, toxic necessarily, but like you said, he didn't return the phone call. He's ditching her. He's giving the same lines to a new person.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing? What is this?
The
Call him
criticism
out.
goes to him.
Yeah.
Well, and think about how much her previous experience with Angel influenced her, because it's not a coincidence that the similarities of waking up alone in bed the morning after in red sheets.
Yeah.
I know. Is that a thing with guys back then?
Yes.
Like,
apparently.
Every dude
like
in the 90s and 2000s had either maroon or navy blue sheets on their bed. It was like, nothing girly in here at all. Like, I'm a man. Like, the lack of color in men's homes is disturbing. It's like everything is these like dusty maroon colors. It's very upsetting to me. I did have one friend who had red satin sheets, and when I saw them in his bedroom, I made fun of him so hard.
Those are sex sheets.
And he was like, "Hey, don't knock it until I've taken you home and had my way with you." And I was like, "Gross. That's gross. You're gross."
That's
and he was
not
like,
the way to sell the sheets.
And he was like, "I'm 26. I'm allowed to be gross. I'll stop being gross when I'm 30." And I was like, "Okay, I'll check back in with you." And you know what? He did stop being gross. So,
you know what that reminds me of?
What?
I don't know if we've talked about that on here. Speaking of scummy guys, we had a law review party to celebrate like our comments being published, my 3L year, and a guy that had been in my section and a thorn in my side for 3 years saw me like, I don't know what I did. I like smacked one of my really good guy friends in the chest, like really lighthearted. And because he said something stupid. And this guy came up to me and grabbed my boob and ran away. And I was so pissed. I like stalked after him while one of his friends tried to like get in front of me. And when I went up to him, I was just like, you know, I won't say all the things I said, but the gist of it was like, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" And he was just like, "We're 3Ls. Like, I only have 2 more months to sexually harass people and get away with it." And
why are men?
He is now a very prominent attorney in Austin.
He's probably
And
still
I think
harassing
about
people
him,
when he thinks he can get away with it.
Yep. Every time I see, he reminds me of Parker. He was not my Parker,
But he was someone else's Parker.
He did it. He was
like
shady
nauseous. Like,
to people in our section. Like that type of guy. Not everyone grows out of it.
Yep.
No.
Oh God, no. I've known plenty of men who should have, who still think it's funny. They think it's funny.
God.
I've encountered a weird one, which is a gay guy grabbed my boob one time. And I was
I have also had this.
I was like, "Hey, what the hell?" And he was like, "Oh, but I'm gay." And I was like, "I'm still having my boob grabbed by someone who I didn't consent.
Like, that doesn't mean you can touch
I don't care
me.
whether or not you're aroused by boobs. You still grabbed my boob.
Yeah.
Like, not
it's
okay."
Still my body. So I had a similar experience, Penny, in grad school for psychology, where it was a gentleman who was gay, and he just kept touching me. He didn't grab my private parts, but like for me, I'm very cuddly with my friends and family, and I like that. I don't, and we had just started grad school. I didn't know this person. So like it was like a month into it, and he kept like touching my shoulder, touching my arm, touching my hair, like whenever he was moving
like
back.
Grooming.
Yeah, and I don't like it. It is my body, my property. Like that's just how I grew up. I didn't, I don't like it.
Yeah.
And so like, and I remember telling him twice that day alone of like, please don't do that. I don't like it. I don't know you well enough, and I don't like it. And he just kept doing it. And then I said it to him again. And then the third time he did it, he was getting up to use the restroom in the middle of class, and I yelled at him.
Nice.
Because like I didn't like the professor, and I was just kind of on edge, and he did it again the third time that day, because they were 4-hour classes. And I said, "If you touch me one more toenail time, I am going to report you to the dean. Keep your hands off of me forever now."
Yeah.
And like, and he finally did. Like everyone stopped and stared at me, but I'm like, I'm so sick of it.
What more do I need to say, bro?
Yeah.
Like
embarrassing. Sometimes you have to embarrass the man for him to hear you. Like just saying like, this is the whole thing about like, why can't you just be nice? Why can't women just say no and be nice? Why do you have to be mean? Because it doesn't work. And
it's my body.
Public shaming is sometimes the only thing you can do to get a guy to leave you alone is like say it really loud when his friends are around. Like, I don't want you touching me like that. And they don't like being embarrassed. I mean, nobody likes being embarrassed, but like embarrassment is more important to them than whether or not what they're doing is okay. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's the only way to get someone to stop.
Seriously, and it was like, and
Yeah.
my family was surprised when I told them about it. They're like, "You're so cuddly," and you're very honest and upfront when you don't like something. And I'm like, "No, no, no. This was the third time in one class that I had to tell him." And they're like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." They're
Yeah.
because like I'm
You were
just sort of
pushed.
like, yeah, like if I'm not feeling it, I'm not feeling it. But like, and I'll just like let people know. He's like, "No, that was the third time," and
Yeah.
they were like, "Oh, okay." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah, no, I'm sick of it." And so, but like. Yeah, it's a wild, wild
And
thing,
also
but
your
yeah, it doesn't matter.
instincts were telling you, like, I'm a cuddly person too. I love hugging and
Yeah.
holding hands and all that stuff. And I'm very
You guys are both very good
Oh,
huggers.
thanks,
and I
Kara.
love hugs, so
Yeah.
I
I
love
am
hugging
not
my
a touchy
friends.
person.
Yeah. And I'm, I'll cuddle with a friend or whatever.
Yeah.
But your instincts sometimes tell you when someone touches you, there's
Yeah.
something that happens where your instincts are like,
could
this
Feel it.
is not a good touch. Even if it's a
Yeah.
very unassuming touch, it's your shoulder or something that normally
They're
wouldn't
like,
raise a
not getting any
flag.
sexual pleasure because I'm gay from it. I'm like,
Yes. Yeah.
that's not really the point. It's my body.
But like,
It's like I can think of a number of times of male attorneys in a courtroom, like during a docket or something, coming up and touching my shoulder or the back of my neck or the small of my back, where it's just like,
shoulder,
bro,
stop it, shoulder. Stop.
Oh,
like
small
shoulder.
of the back. And I
I
do find it
hate it.
fascinating they don't do it to men too.
Yeah, no.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
friends, I don't care obviously, but like strangers, yeah, no, that's not super friendly. And it's like unless I see you doing that to men in front of you, because we have been socialized that women's bodies are property.
Yeah.
So like it's
Let's
but
talk
again, like,
about pregnant
friends?
women and how
Oh, forget it.
complete
Oh my
strangers will
God.
walk up to pregnant women and like touch their
So
bellies without
weird.
even asking and
I'm about
ask
to be on
them
the news this summer.
Yeah. And ask them like really intimate personal questions like, how is your mucus plug? It's like, get away from me.
Jesus Christ.
Like,
Toenail.
like, why do you think
I
that
don't wanna.
I've never been pregnant, but I have been around a lot of friends when they've been pregnant, and I've seen it happen, and I've stepped
People
in
feel entitled
been like,
to touch.
don't do that. What are you doing?
Yeah, please don't.
Like,
Well,
if my
I've
friend
seen it
doesn't
too.
defend themselves, I'll just step in and be like, don't touch her. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
That's
And it's like,
weird.
if you let us touch her belly, we just had that with my cousin who had her baby. And I, like in the family group chat, I'm like, if she allows us to, like, this isn't our body, it's hers.
yeah. And why are pregnant women suddenly community property? Like, no,
No.
do not touch.
It's totally, absolutely
Do not touch pregnant
crazy.
women unless
So
you are their partner or a good friend and they say, do you want to
permission.
feel the baby kick?
Yeah,
Then you can
ask
touch
permission.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ask first. You can't go wrong with asking first.
It is really
Like-
cool to feel the baby kick, by the way. So
Yeah, it is really cool.
be friends
That's
with a
true.
pregnant
Ask.
person, but ask.
Yeah, just
Establish
ask,
trust.
and it's on them to hold their boundary. But speaking of people's bodies being public property, I gotta say, in the beginning of the show, when Oz's band was singing, I did appreciate the man midriff on the singer of the band. I'm like,
Oh, on
where did
Devin.
this go?
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't bad eye candy. I think
Yeah.
that was
I
Devin.
did not even see him. Like, I did not clock him in the
That's funny.
slightest.
I
What
like-
are you talking
I
about?
always enjoy when Dingoes plays because there's something about the way Devin moves on stage that I find really entertaining. He's sort of captured a vibe from the 90s that a lot of men singers had, that where they sort of lightly sway and they hold the microphone like they want to kiss it, and he's very sensual in the way he moves on stage. I find it really entertaining. I also want to point out that's the greatest shot of Oz playing guitar that is used in the credits, where it like comes from below and it's at a little bit of an angle, and he looks super, super cool. Great shot.
As you guys are talking about Devin, I am realizing that if I close my eyes right now, I could not even picture what his face looks like.
He's got kind of a
And
generic,
I don't know
like,
how that happened.
nice-looking white guy face. Like, he's not particularly memorable.
Around
Yeah.
a decent amount. Like, Cordelia has her interaction with him.
Yeah, but he's just not that memorable, like, because he's kind of a dingbat too. So you're like,
Yes.
whatever.
Which is why
Devin.
That's true.
the statement with Harmony being more flaky than him.
Yeah,
I
Just
love
like,
that.
pause to do
I
it.
am so happy. Like this episode, thinking about it, like we get Spike back, we get Harmony back, we get Anya back, and I forgot that this is when we see all three of them again.
Yeah.
And it's just, it makes me so
They're
happy.
all such entertaining characters
Yes.
They're
and
so good.
such talented performers. Emma Caulfield is so pretty. Sometimes it like hurts me to look at her. I'm like, God, you're pretty.
I know.
And
The bone
She's
structure.
so funny
and
though.
oh my God, she gets funnier and funnier and funnier as the seasons go on.
I love it.
I'm Anya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love her. And
One
like,
of-
we already talked about Harmony and how brilliant she is. And of course, everyone
Yes.
knows we love Spike. Even though in
Oh my
this episode, he is so mean. When he and Buffy have their
really is.
showdown and he's like,
Oh my god.
he's like,
Treating her for filth.
yeah, he's like,
He was
you
like,
gave Parker a
give him a
poke,
taste.
and oh, did you break the boy?
yeah,
Did you
so
bruise him? Were you
gross.
too strong?
Oh
All those
my
things he said
gosh.
were so disgusting and
Vile.
so
Vile.
Very
calculated by Spike to set Buffy off her game. But what I love is that the more vile he is, the more determined she is to win. And it reminds me of this time I was playing pool at a wedding. There was a pool table in this like side room at this wedding. It was a really cool venue. It was like a castle. And it was, my wedding date was another person who went to my college, a guy that I went to college with. And then we were playing against my boss and her now wife. And my boss knew that the fact that Vassar is co-ed is like a talking point, is like a thing. And so she was taunting my friend, who's a guy who went to Vassar, and she was like, Vassar, isn't that a girls' school? Because she knew that that was like a thing, and she was trying to throw him off his pool game, right? And he goes,
Gosh.
women's college,
Oh.
and now it's co-ed. And then he ran the table. Like, he just, like, sank every ball. Like, bam, 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 bam. And we talked about it for years afterward. We were like, it just made you the right exact kind of angry, where it motivated you to just clean up at pool. And it was so funny. Like, we were all laughing about it afterward because she was trying to throw him off and it didn't work.
I operate. Like, my dad tells this story all the time. When I was little, they would have to tell me not to do something in order for me to do it. Like, we were
Nice
trying to go
psychology.
to church or something like that, and I was not putting on like my shoes or my little Sunday school dress or whatever, and he was like, don't you put that dress on. Don't you
like
put those
it.
shoes on. And he said I would glare at him and like pull my shoes on. And I feel like that works now. Like, if you tell me I cannot do something, then I'm going to do it.
I
I'm going to
love
do it well. But it's interesting how, you know, with Buffy and Spike and their dynamic, he thinks he knows. I mean, he is hurting her. We know that those words are affecting her.
Yeah.
But the way that it fuels her is something that I really enjoy about their dynamic. Like, he knows her.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
so
he really
well.
does
He really does
respect her. And so I think that
Yes.
being mean about
He
Parker
actually does.
was actually a little bit about jealousy. Like,
Oh yeah, 100%. And he's dealing with Harmony.
I
when
know.
Well, I'll save this for the spoiler section, but there's something there.
yeah.
Yes.
Where that dynamic and his attraction to Buffy, like,
Yeah.
we've seen it before, and it is not gone.
No, and we see like he gets Buffy mad, and when she gets super mad, then she defeats him. It's like, yes, that's right, get mad, ladies and gents.
Yeah.
Get mad.
Yeah.
I have it down like when Buffy and Spike fight and Xander comes in, why didn't he just kill Xander? Like, he kicked him in the ribs and then like, or punched him in the ribs and then threw him. It's almost like he does respect the Scoobies in a certain way. Like,
He
he's
knows
not
it'll piss Buffy off. Like, he doesn't want to kill Willow for
exactly.
Harmony.
Yeah.
Like, he has these opportunities to kill the humans and he doesn't. So I always kind of wondered if there was like a begrudging respect for the Scoobies.
I think that he knows they're Buffy's friends. And I think he also, in that moment, was like, if I take the time to kill Xander, it will open me up to Buffy killing me, right? Because
Mm.
he would be like in the moment of the kill would be just enough of a distraction for Buffy to get in there. And he also
Oh, I
was
thought he
like,
would just snap
Xander's
his
not
neck.
worth my time. Like, throw him aside. And,
That's
you know,
true.
Buffy is the main event.
He's like shooing a
He's
fly.
like, I could kill him
He's like,
anytime, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is my opportunity
and-
to kill Buffy because I have this ring.
Spike knows what he's doing. He's an excellent fighter. He's killed multiple Slayers before. We know that at this point. And it, you know, he's not an idiot. I think it's kind of fun watching their back and forth. And I think Spike also enjoys that
Oh,
back
he
and
loves
forth.
it.
He doesn't want it to be too easy.
He
Like,
likes that
he
Buffy
needs to keep engaged.
He likes that Buffy is always a challenge for him. He's never defeated her. He is attracted to her, and for him, violence and sex are like merged,
It's like foreplay.
right? Like, it's very
Yeah.
clear that he and Drusilla engaged in, you know, some bondage, a little S&M,
Chains.
and he's very rough with Harmony, and she kind of likes it, but doesn't. She's new to this world, I think, and doesn't know exactly what she likes. But he loves that Buffy challenges him, and it's a fine line for him between killing and having sex with someone. Like, he can't separate those things in his head, really.
Well, his life and his psyche are dripping in violence. It's violence all the time with Spike because, you know, like you said, with him and Drusilla, their dynamic, at least it was consensual with them. Drusilla was also very much into the intersection of violence and sex.
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, it feels icky still with Harmony because in the show she's 18, she's newly graduated, and we know in real life that she was much younger than him. And that's one of the key differences is the power dynamics in her relationship with Spike, whereas Drusilla and Spike are kind of on this equal playing field, and Harmony and Spike are absolutely not.
And Drusilla sired him, and he always, even when they were engaged in their darkest, creepiest, whatever, he always referred to her as like his queen, his creator,
Pet.
And there was a deep respect that he had for her because of that. And I don't know if in this vampire universe, the sire-siree relationship has like certain rules to it. In some vampire
like Vampire Diaries.
in some universes the person who's the vampire that sires you literally can't hurt them, or you have to obey their commands. I don't think that's true in this universe. I think that and they don't seem to be psychically bonded the way they are in some vampire mythologies, but I think for Spike, the fact that he owed his vampire life to Drusilla always gave her a little bit of power over him no matter what. And with Harmony, first of all, he just doesn't value her, right? So he's like, you're disposable, so act like it. Like, you're lucky I let you live here with me. You know, I make sure you have blood, and you're, you know, just be quiet, basically. And she has no power. None, beyond being a vampire herself, right? She doesn't have minions. She doesn't have experience. She's, you know, she's in a weak state.
Really captures the essence of an abusive relationship. Like, she's isolated. She can't, you know, she doesn't have the means to live anywhere else. And a lot of times, you know, the financial control and abuse is a huge part of it to keeping you tied to this person. And I know that the writers of Buffy are intelligent for the most part, emotionally intelligent for the most part, and I think that there are lots of signs in this episode that it was written by a woman.
Same. Agreed.
I think you can feel it. And I also have to shout out whoever came up with the title of this one, because the harsh light of day and all the multiple meanings, like on its face, you've got, you know, Spike or whatever vampire wearing the Gem of Amara being able to go out in the sunlight and not risk being burned. But then at the same time, the metaphor of, you know, kind of facing reality
our
and
decisions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
it's a
any
great title.
illusion that you may have had about
Yeah.
a situation going away, you've got all of that applying to Buffy and multiple levels. And it's just, I really, I knew I loved this episode,
Yeah.
but I think it is one of the most well done
Mm-hmm.
episodes of the series. It works
Mm-hmm.
on so many levels, and I think it's nice to see them treat the topic of sex with, some sincerity and a little bit of reverence,
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing, like Xander says, that there are consequences when
Mm-hmm.
you engage in that kind of intimacy with someone. And they give us 3 really good examples and examinations of that.
Yeah. And then the
And
end with the 3
mhm.
women
I
all
was gonna say the 3 sads.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, at the
Ugh.
end.
all walking alone
Yeah.
at night, just sort of
Ugh.
pondering the sadness of these different disappointments.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Still
powerful.
left with it and processing it. I think a lot of emotional labor continues to be put on women. And for me, like the 3
Yeah.
sads at the end
Yeah.
being,
Aw.
walking near each other but not connecting and just sort of
Yeah.
lost in their own misery. And it just sort of reminds me that even in 2025, women predominantly hold the responsibility, intentionally or not, for the emotional labor of what goes on in society. And so
Yeah.
it just sort of resonated. Like, they all had that, the 3 of them had that in common, despite Anya being the toxic one. And so it was just really powerful for me of like, that's another thing, Kara, that reminded me of like, oh, this episode was written by a woman, or at least had Jane
Yeah.
Espenson as the contributing writer.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
again, we're back to the beginning.
Can we have a second of appreciation for sexy casual Giles?
Yeah.
Okay, I had that too.
I'm just like, damn,
We have
Giles.
reached the light objectification portion
I
of the
know.
program where we all just express our general appreciation for Anthony Stewart
Xander.
Head and enjoy him out of his tweeds. I really love the scene where they find the TV and he's like, oh, public television.
Yes.
Like,
It's so
It was
cute.
so great.
I mean, as an adult, as
Mhm.
like an adult now, I just have this new appreciation on this rewatch for Giles, where I'm like, huh, look at
yeah,
that.
he's quite
Sipping
handsome.
my pants.
Yep.
He is quite handsome.
He could get it.
Yeah. I have this problem where the actor who plays Parker is named Adam Kaufman, and I get him mixed up in my head all the time with Wes Bentley. Wes Bentley played
Yeah, they do look
he was
alike.
the game maker in the
They
first
do.
Hunger Games movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I could
they
see
look
it.
so much alike. Adam Kaufman was not in Hunger Games. I may have said that in the past. I was wrong. He was in an episode of Veronica Mars where he plays a character that Veronica suspects of being an abusive boyfriend. And I'm sure that the Veronica Mars writers, producers had this episode of Buffy in mind. There's a lot of Buffy actors that show up in Veronica Mars, first of all. And including Joss Whedon is in an episode of Veronica Mars. And I think that they were counting on Veronica Mars fans having seen this episode so that we would all be like, that's Parker.
Like, red
He's
flag.
definitely the
Immediately.
beating up boyfriend. Like, yeah, get him, Veronica. I think they counted on it. There's a twist. It's not what you think,
Yeah.
but
For
that's Adam Kaufman.
for me, he is always forever in my mind gonna be. Actually, came out in 2000. He was involved in the first ever loving kiss between 2 gay men on primetime
on
television.
Dawson's Creek.
On Dawson's Creek
That's
with
right.
Kerr Smith.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, I
How
forgot about
I always
that.
remember him, like, other than
Oh, I
Parker.
love Jack.
Yeah, so I know, like, soap operas had done it before, but, like, I remember, like, that was such,
Not
like,
the same.
That was big
yeah, like,
news at the time. That was really
yeah,
big
that
news.
was a big thing, which would have been aired a little bit after this.
Yeah,
His
not too long after this.
episode stint in 1999.
Ugh.
And then, I did have a question, speaking of Giles. Why is Giles' door unlocked?
Yeah.
Like that's just a bad idea in Sunnydale. I mean, is it because vampires can't enter without permission.
But like,
But
there's
there's
other
monsters,
things.
Giles.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's a good question. And
Yeah,
then
and Sunnydale is not like this quaint, small
like
town.
like this isn't like, are you trying to lure in demons to come see you rather
No.
than other helpless people in Sunnydale? I don't know. And then Giles' book system, that quote cracked me up. He goes,
Oh my god.
yeah, like Xander's like, your crazy system over here, and he goes,
Your
my
crazy
crazy
system.
system, it's called the alphabet. Like,
Oh,
what?
that's so
And then
funny.
Xander's
what
like,
system?
oh.
Like,
Yeah.
what system did you think he was doing, Xander? Like, what?
Very special.
Yeah, that's a
Very,
special
very
Xander moment.
Oh my gosh, speaking of Xander, it's not really his fault, but ick to those necklaces that he was wearing. Those necklaces and the shell necklaces. I know it was a
So
trend. I couldn't stand it
classic.
then. I hate them now.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, it was like a thin one, like like just I've always disliked those necklaces. And then where Harmony in the beginning, when Harmony went up to Willow and they were saying like, I haven't seen you since graduation. Big snake, huh? I just put sigh. Florida, everything reminds me of you.
Yeah. Oh, Florida. That's hilarious. Yeah, I've always liked Big Snake, huh? It's so understated for what happened at graduation. Like, and also that's when Harmony got
became
bit.
a vampire.
So
yeah.
for her to be like, Big Snake, huh? And not be like, yeah, I got bit by a vampire. Like,
yeah. Like, yeah, I died.
So
gosh,
hilarious.
So many of my notes are curse words and Parker things that we've basically talked about. But one of my favorite points, like we talked about the, Spike and Harmony and the abusive aspects of their relationship, but their chemistry together in terms of comedy
so good.
is outstanding. Like how she gives away, like, yeah, when we get the the gem of Amara, and he's just like, Harmony, like, hush, like you're giving it all away. And then when she points out that Drew left him for a fungus demon and that's all he talked about most days, like they play off of each other.
They are really good together as a comedy duo.
Well.
It's
I can see them building that dynamic of like, just because he's like, I'm twice your age and I have to act like your boyfriend and we need to have sex scenes.
It's
like
weird.
I can see them building a relationship off of set, not romantically, but like
that's also another
being more
reason why
familiar.
I really love James Marsters, because it is so common to have that type of age gap between men and women in Hollywood that it's not even questioned most of the time. And in this instance, it's like, yeah, it's pretty weird that this 37-year-old man is supposed to be having love scenes with a freshly turned 18-year-old. Like, she is a child.
Yeah, and this was before the days of intimacy coordinators. They basically, it was like them and James Contner working out how that was going to go. And it's not just sex scenes either. It's like rough, abusive sex scenes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've never seen any interviews with Mercedes McNabb about that experience, and I would like to know how that was for her, and
I would be curious
how they approached it, because it had to be really difficult for her. I am often interested in the lives of people who grew up on screen and are child actors and go on to become adult actors, and often have to play a losing your virginity scene at some point in their career. And I know that sometimes those actors are like, I've never had a kiss in real life and now I'm pretending on screen, and it's really awkward and difficult and sometimes traumatizing for them. And I don't know what her background is and how she felt about this scene.
She was a child actress.
Yeah, she was
in Addams Family Values.
Yeah, yes, from before Buffy.
Yeah.
What's interesting is she got married, I believe, in like 2012 or 2013, and she hasn't acted since.
Oh,
she got married.
I hope she's happy.
So
and that's why.
Yeah, yeah.
She's
Yeah.
so good.
Living the hype. I think she's still going to the cons though, but like occasionally,
That's
but
nice.
like
Yeah.
the Comic
She
Cons and stuff
also
like
had a
that. But
I
great
would.
episode of Supernatural where she was also a
Oh
vampire.
yeah,
so
so
great,
good.
so great.
And the James Marsters Charisma Carpenter episode of
Oh yeah, that's great
Supernatural.
too.
I
That was
love that one.
another great one. I always think like,
Ugh.
fanfic in my head of like Buffy and Dean. Like
Yeah,
they'd make a good pairing.
they would.
They would be the hottest couple.
I
That would
know.
be insane.
And I think their personalities would mesh too. I think that they'd work.
Buffy would be the only woman that Dean could have a long-term
Yeah.
relationship with because
Yeah.
she could keep up with, the crazy lifestyle that
Yeah.
the Winchesters have.
And Dean's a romantic.
He
at
is. He is.
Yeah.
I feel like he would let her be in charge too. Like,
And
like
he'd be
'cause-
happy about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He'd be like,
he let his
she's
dad
the
and
boss
everything.
and I like it.
Yeah, exactly. I could totally see like those two having like a good
Aw.
a good healthy dynamic, even though they're like different shows and stuff like that. But like,
fine.
I'm like, oh,
Totally
I
fine.
think they'd make a cute couple. I think they would be good for each other.
Yeah,
So-
that's a crossover I would have loved to have seen.
Yeah,
is the
right?
Winchesters over on Buffy.
I
Or
know.
even if they just did like a
Sarah Michelle
you know,
Gellar or something.
a cameo where they play a different character, but they're,
Yeah. I think they
on the show
talk
together
about Buffy, but
it would make people really happy.
yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of Buffy actors do at some point show up on Supernatural. I mean, there's 15 seasons of Supernatural.
Yeah,
there's a lot of opportunity.
Yes. Very much
Um,
so.
But at that point in time, Sarah Michelle Gellar was being Daphne and doing a lot of horror movies and
right.
stuff. She wasn't doing TV after Buffy.
I love how when Parker points out Buffy's scar, she's like, "Oh, it was a angry puppy," and the references that keep coming up to angry puppy being obviously Angel
Yeah.
biting her. Every time I hear it, just such a glorious flashback to the Wish when
Yeah.
Willow keeps
Calling him the
Angel.
puppy.
I know. the puppy bite.
So bizarre and so funny. And that whole scene where they, go and approach and kind of interrupt Buffy and Parker when Oz and Willow have to go tell her they ran
That was
into.
great.
Yeah, and Oz, like, no question, just immediately picks up on, that angry puppy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oz doesn't miss a beat. You know,
No.
we never really get a lot of Oz backstory, and I would
I
love
wish
to
we
know
did.
how he got to be so even keel.
No.
Very well adjusted.
For some reason, I just saw a clip again of the episode where he finds out about vampires at Buffy's surprise birthday party, where he's like, did you everybody else see that guy just turn to dust? Like, and at no point do we see any indication that Oz is a stoner, but the way he responds to things is often very stonerish.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. He's a little
but
philosophical.
there are people who are
sometimes, too.
naturally like that. I've known people like that. And
Yeah.
he's just like,
Those are some of my favorite people because I am so high
Yeah.
strung.
it's pleasant to
That
be around those
when-
people.
Yeah, they just have this lovely calming effect.
Yeah. Oz is lovely. I would love to hang out with Oz. I think he
know.
would be a great buddy.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I also find him very attractive, but I would never want to get in between him and Willow because I think
Yeah.
they're great together. But
I know.
Oz is
Yeah, nobody should ever get between
No.
Oz.
is fantastic. And for a long time I wanted an Oz spin-off show. I was like,
Yeah, they were talking
I
about
want to
that,
see
weren't they?
Oz like traipsing around the
would be
world,
pretty
like learning
great.
about werewolf lore and stuff. That'd be so cool.
That'd be
You know,
cool.
Oz would fit in well with the Winchesters as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's see. The only other thing, I had two more little
Okay.
points. One, I thought it was interesting that when Spike and Buffy are fighting, the same arm he hurts is the one that Sunday
Oh
I noticed that.
yeah.
in the freshman. Like, more signs of Buffy's kind of vulnerability. The fact that, she's actually taking some damage in these fights lately. And I think that really adds to her mental state and makes what Parker did even more kind of diabolical for her. And I think we'll see the effects of that coming up. The only other thing is, I think, we see all of this, all of these relationships and how they're dealing with the consequences and the ramifications of sex and being physically intimate. And the show kind of ends with a, kind of lovely display of
Mm.
love, like true
Mhm.
love, with Buffy deciding to get the Gem of Amara to
Yeah.
Angel. It's not even really a question for her. And Willow, even when Xander kind of clicks, she's like,
Don't make a
don't
thing.
question it, like don't make
Yeah.
it a thing. She's gonna get it to Angel. And I just think that's
It's
kind
sweet.
of a
Yeah.
nice way to end it. And obviously this episode was advertised as a
Mhm.
crossover for Angel, so we'll get to talk
Better
about that
believe I watched it.
next week.
Yeah.
Right away, because I have no impulse control.
Yeah. That's what I'll be doing right after this.
I think that means it's time for us to get into some pop, not pop culture references. And there were many.
Mhm.
Yep. There were. The first one, of course, we love hearing Giles talk about anything really, but offering his wisdom about the Gem of Amara, he said it's not real. It's like the vampire equivalent of the Holy Grail. And of course, the Holy Grail, according to some legends of the Middle Ages, particularly Arthurian legends, was the cup used by Jesus in dispensing the wine at the Last Supper. And according to others, it was the platter on which the Paschal lamb was served at the last Passover observed by Christ. And the Grail and the quest for it has been the subject of a ton of medieval legend and allegory and a lot of modern day tellings. This point kind of goes on and on. We could talk about the Holy Grail forever, but I think, of course, of Monty Python and the Holy Grail and all of the lore around the Knights of the Round Table. And I think that's a great way to emphasize just how important the Gem of Amara is and why Spike and so many others would be so eager to find it.
Also reminds me of that Indiana Jones movie. Is it the fourth one with Sean Connery? When they are searching for the Grail, and
very intense.
But Monty Python Search for the Holy Grail is one of those movies that I think you have to see it when you're about 13.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's too late in your adulthood to really enjoy the humor, but I still enjoy it because I enjoyed it so much when I was a kid.
I feel like that for like Star Wars
and the
too.
Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
That's another big Holy Grail piece of fiction.
It's very it looms large in Western culture.
Yes.
Xander says to Anya on the fact that she's dreamt about him. Really? If I'm in the checkout lane at Walmart, I've had the same one. Walmart is a huge chain of stores in the U.S. selling everything from basic food items to guns to clothes to televisions. It's important to note that,
if you didn't know,
that he's naked in the dreams, and that's why it's funny. And Xander's like, "Oh, I've had that dream."
Yeah,
I love that.
Harmony says, "Is Antonio Banderas a vampire?" Spike replies, "No." Harmony says, "Oh, can I make him a vampire?" Spike says, "No." Wait, on second thought, yeah. Go do that. Take your time. Do Melanie and the kids as well. Antonio Banderas is a notoriously handsome actor and producer and director. He did play a vampire, Armand, in 1994's Interview with the Vampire. Melanie is Melanie Griffith, his celebrity actress wife at the time, known for her squeaky voice. Though Griffith has 3 children, only one of them was fathered by Banderas, and they are no longer together. Also, when
Are they not?
Oh yeah,
How did I not know that? When did that's been a long time?
it's been a bit. But also
so maybe I did
when
know
this was airing
level.
in the fall of 1999, I was like, what movies would Harmony have seen around that time to make her really get pulled in by Antonio Banderas? But I had to think what Harmony would have seen him in, not just the movies he was in. And I'm guessing it was
when was
Mask of Zorro.
Zorro?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Would have been the one I would imagine
I
she would have seen,
remember
'cause that came out a year or two
seeing
before.
him and Catherine Zeta-Jones
Yes.
in that movie and being like,
Yeah, I like
Who are all these
I know.
beautiful people?
Yes.
Interesting.
Absolutely. They're all amazing. I want a sandwich.
Oh, jeez.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not teen you, but like adult
I
you.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yep. Uh-huh. That
There
and
you
the
go.
Mummy. It's
There
like,
you
huh,
Yeah. A lot of beauty
at
on
that.
screen there.
All works.
Oh, that's funny. And finally, Oz is perusing Giles' albums and compliments his music taste and asks him specifically about the album Loaded by the Velvet Underground.
That is a great album.
Which is a great album.
That had a lot of playtime in my college years.
Nice.
And now we are moving
Oh,
on to
man.
trivia, which is very hard to differentiate from culture references, but there you have it.
Yep.
JW has mentioned in various interviews that Sarah Michelle Gellar disagreed with Buffy sleeping with Parker. She thought it was too soon after Angel had left her, and she didn't think that Buffy would do something like that. Whedon told Sarah that when you, quote, go to college, you do stupid things, end quote. Yeah, so I like how he mansplained a woman's experience to a woman. And
Yeah.
apparently, JW, you continue to do stupid things as an adult.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh dear. But I thought that
Yeah.
was interesting that she thought it'd be too soon, which I get that
Yeah.
perspective.
Except it's been
but
at
the
least
same
3
time,
months.
Yeah.
yeah, and he is, if it was just a one night stand type thing where she met him
Mhm.
at a party, sure. But I think she was already feeling so vulnerable after her, whole interaction with Sunday. She was feeling kind of broken down, and Parker helped her feel
Yeah.
good
And then worse.
and feel worthy of attention. Yep.
Yeah.
Oy. And then another JW mention, he has said that losing Cordelia as the voice of reason, who of course, as we know, would not sugarcoat things for the Scooby Gang, changed the dynamic of the show, and he realized they would need someone to fill her absence. And this opened the door to bringing Spike on as a cast member for the rest of the series. He would appear, this is kind of a spoiler, but he would appear in every episode starting with episode 6, Wild at Heart.
James Marster, Spike, was uncredited in the original airing of The Harsh Light of Day, but was later added to the opening credits. This was so as not to spoil the surprise of his character's reappearance. And thank you for that, because it was a surprise.
That is considerate.
The following was a stage direction from the script for The Harsh Light of Day when Spike and Harmony entered the crypt where the Gem of Amara was. Quote, there is a dead demon here, withered and decayed and brown and crunchy, arrayed in finery
Ew.
on a carved wooden bier. End quote. Ooh,
It's very
scary.
descriptive.
Yeah.
Brown and
Ugh.
crunchy. Okay. Oh, man. And then Devin, who apparently I can't remember to save my life, played by Jason Hall, actually made his final appearance in this episode. The character is mentioned again in a couple episodes in Something Blue and New Moon Rising, but we never see him
Oh.
again. So farewell,
Bye,
Devin.
This exchange between Willow and Buffy was deleted from the final cut of the episode. Willow says, you know what else I love about college? How when the professor comes in, the class gets all quiet? And Buffy says, oh, I hate that. I'm always like, what? Did something scary come in? Do I have to kill it? Oh, yeah.
I wish they left that in. That's
Ooh.
funny.
That's harsh,
You know,
though.
there were a lot of deleted scenes.
That's some hypervigilance trauma garbage right there, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Do I have to kill it?
And also accurate.
Yeah.
Like she won a whole umbrella award because that literally was her job.
Yep.
When people get quiet, she
Aw.
has to go kill things. The following line was cut after they first see Harmony again. Devin, man, that looked like Harmony. Weird. I saw her get bit at graduation. I didn't tell you? That kind of one was funny.
Of course. Yeah. The following exchanges between Buffy and Parker were cut regarding Buffy's drowning. Right after she tells him, Parker says, wow, I mean, you hear about stuff like that. And Buffy says, yeah, well, Pool safety, important. Anyway,
That
which
was
is cute. And then Parker says, ugh, Buffy, when you drowned, whoever brought you back, they're getting a big kiss from me. And Buffy said, Xander will be so happy. Which I love.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty great.
That would be hot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as we saw in Dawson's Creek, it definitely would have been hot.
He's
Yeah.
a good kisser.
And a better way
Clearly.
to send off Parker. And Xander.
Wow, there were a lot of cut.
That would have been an interesting more story. There, I didn't even include.
There were a
them all.
lot
I
of
picked
cut
the ones
lines
that I
from
thought
this
were
episode. So here's another one
the best
from Xander when Anya visits him at Giles's place in the basement. This is just, I'd say, out of nowhere, but that doesn't really capture the amount of nowhere which it's out of.
That's a very Xander line.
So
That's
you're my
cute.
first guest at Casa del Xander. Not the final name. Still working on it.
I like those lines.
Yeah.
And
this is my favorite.
The following exchange between Buffy and Giles about Spike and Harmony's relationship that was deleted. Buffy, I mean, I thought Spike and Drew were a forever kind of deal, didn't you? Where's the commitment? Giles, I'm disillusioned. I shall never love again. That is funny. Kept that in.
Love that.
Kept that in. I like this stuff.
Oh
I could just picture him delivering that line.
And so dry.
Yeah, so would have been amazing.
That's a classic Giles line.
Love it.
Oh yeah.
All right, ladies. I can't believe I just called you ladies.
It's all good. I've been called worse.
All right, bitches.
Yeah.
Close to the worst
does
things I've been
it
called.
still slay? Kara, what do you think?
I mean, I can't imagine that anybody doesn't know what my answer to this question is going to be at this point, but I think it absolutely still slays. I think it's clear there was so much good material that they couldn't even include. I thought it was a very thoughtful treatment of the subject at hand, and I really like it. Even though it makes me uncomfortable, I think it's a good kind of uncomfortable, and I think it absolutely does still slay.
Sam?
I agree. I second. I think with some minor tweaks with technology updates, like instead of the dorm phone, Buffy has a cell phone.
payphone.
Like, I mean, yeah, like just some small tweaks, and this could have been set in 2024. I mean, it is just so, at least to me, it feels especially relevant.
I also agree that it still slays. I think the vitriol we all have for Parker tells us that this was a well-written character and that the episode has an impact. And I agree that it really holds up over time. Certain things don't change. Technology changes, fashion changes, but dating, relationships between men and women, a lot of that stuff is eternal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's a reason why Shakespeare plays are still relevant.
Right. When we don't even have to understand exactly what they're saying, we can get the gist. We're like, no, that tracks. Also, Shakespeare is very dirty. So many dirty jokes.
Oh,
we first did Shakespeare plays when I was in 5th grade. And of course, I didn't get all the jokes.
Yeah.
But like, my goodness, we shouldn't be teaching kids those jokes.
They're very clever. I was on a Shakespeare team in high school.
What's a team? What's a Shakespeare team?
Okay.
I think you win the nerd award.
I know. I was very well rounded in high school.
competition.
Yeah. I know. Well, and it was funny. Everybody, all my friends made fun of me for doing it too. But you would go to competitions where you would either answer questions or analyze certain quotes, and then you would be graded and your team would be awarded a certain number of points and you could win. So it was like an academic competition, but solely for Shakespeare.
Okay. That is deeply nerdy, but I respect it.
So nerdy. Yeah. That's why I like to say I did a little bit of everything. I was on the volleyball team. I was on the swim team. I did theater.
Well, you had me beat. I did theater, yearbook, choir, and what was the last one? Was newspaper. And I also volunteered at our library, school library, not original library.
Nice.
So my nerd cred is deep.
I played volleyball. I founded a poetry club.
Nice.
Lots and lots of theater, chorus. I was in Students Against Drunk Driving, and I was like the vice president of it or something like that. And I did a bunch of stuff outside of school. Like I had a part-time job, and I was very active in my church youth group, and I did a bunch of church leadership stuff. Like I was the teen representative on the church board and stuff.
Dang.
I gave sermons. Like I was really active in my church, even though I was very upfront about the fact that I wasn't sure I believed in God. I was still like
nice,
very active because I believed in the community building aspects of church.
Right. That makes sense. Gosh,
yeah.
my first
yearbook,
job was
I
at
did
a
yearbook.
tanning salon.
Yeah.
Oh, I worked at the Gap. It's the most 80s high school stereotype in the whole world.
I worked at Blockbuster. That's the 90s,
Nice.
early aughts version.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I am
fun.
so good at folding things, you guys. I'm the best folder. So good.
A lost art.
I think now it is time. In fact, I know now that it is time for us to go over to the bronze. I know I could use a beer and a game of pool. I don't know about you guys.
That actually sounds delicious.
Yes.
Bronze things. Things of bronze.
Let's see what some of our listeners had to say. Sam, you want to read that first one?
Sure. It's from Becky. Great episode! Harmony's return with Spike added some fun. I loved Buffy's comment about her being a mess because she can't see her reflection anymore. That was great. I can't wait for Buffy to be in a more healthy relationship. I relate to her having a moment with someone thinking it meant something only to discover it didn't, to them anyway. Spike was cruel with his comment about her not being worth another go. I'm excited for the crossover episode with Oz when Oz gets to LA, one of my favorite episodes of Angel. Finished listening to the pod on the Angel pilot. Y'all got me super excited for the rewatch. Grr, arr. I love it, Becky.
Yay.
I'm with you. I couldn't even hold back. I had to go and watch the Angel episode.
It just gets so good.
I'll read this one from Karen, who says, I'm still not loving low confidence Buffy, but I can't complain about any episode with Spike. I'm thinking, why does he treat Harmony so bad? But then, oh yeah, he's evil. And he's totally on the rebound. Also, this totally plays into the sexy vampire trope. Like, you're way sexier as a vampire. I do get...
Spike is.
I do get a little ick now with the Xander Anya scene. That's a little too male fantasy for me. Especially seeing Xander as a substitute for JW barf emoji.
Ooh, good point.
Yeah, it is a fantasy.
That.
Like a beautiful woman
Yeah.
comes to your home and takes her clothes off and asks for sex.
And is trying to convince you to have sex with them, and that he is the stand-in for JW. Yeah, that does bring an ick factor.
It's a little gross. She's right.
Yeah.
Who's next? Kara.
Okay, we've got an email from Coffee and Vodka. He says, greetings, fellow sideline slayers. The through line of this one was either guys or expectations, or both being more insidious villains than blood-sucking vampires. Although this was kind of cool in that it showed 4 distinct relationship types and how all but one could go awry, with that 4th also eventually falling to the wayside. So, another cheery Sunnydale romp with the Scooby Gang. Liked the MacGuffin even more how it was discovered. Never much of a Harmony fan. I want to hear more about that. Tell me about not being a Harmony fan, because clearly the 3 of us are all on board. I want to hear more. Even pushed me into going back into season 2, episode 3, to recheck Drew, remembering how awesome a character and crush-worthy she was. Very true. Liked this one on all levels, and on reflection, Spike was more comic relief than threat, leaving Parker the only real villainous stake bait for me. That's a good point. That is Very true. And he gives it 3.5 off harmonies, rings of power, and spiked spikes out of 5.
Nice.
That's funny. Peace and take care, coffee and
I gotta say,
vodka.
I hadn't really thought about it, but
Man.
I'm like, I've never dated a Harmony. So like maybe that's a part of it. I kind of
True.
look at her as like this really entertaining character that is funny and
Yeah.
very talented actress, but I've never had a romantic experience with a Harmony, so
Yeah.
that would change things. I definitely wouldn't
Yeah.
date
I
her.
mean, she also, like, comparing her to Drusilla is just, like, not fair because Drew is so
She's just
fabulous.
hot and
But that's the
sexy and
point.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah.
But poor
I
poor
know.
Harm.
Harm's like the Temu version of Drusilla.
Yeah.
No, she keeps calling her Dorcas, which is a great, like, kind of Salem witch trials
Oh yeah.
esque
I like it.
name.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. Sam, you want to
Oh,
read this next
man.
one?
The next one is from Piotr. Hello, still slaying. I'm excited about your new episodes, but kicking myself for not commenting on the previous ones. That's okay. We missed you. I got sidetracked, but if you don't mind, I will do a brief recap. Oh, yay. The Freshman. Not the greatest Buffy episode, but it resonates with me on a personal level. I think I've watched it more times than other episodes because I've been there. I always come back to it when I need to clear the voices of doubt. What if I can't cut it? I guess I'm looking for ways to dust the bad things without even looking, and then remark, it's a lot like high school, which I can handle. My college entrance was fairly disorienting as well. I started grad school in Massachusetts, barely speaking English, so I know what not knowing what's up on campus means, especially when my classmates seem super on the ball. Hi, Doug.
Oh, that's because when she's talking to Oz about being disoriented, he's like, yeah, me too. Oh, hi, Doug.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. I can't imagine what that's like, the college experience, the grad school experience on top of it's a different language. Oh my goodness, that's a lot.
Yeah.
About living conditions, Buffy was acting like a total bitka. That's true. I
Great
like that.
callback.
It has been indicated that it was mostly because of the soul-sucking ritual, but I found it amusing that it was hard to distinguish which aspects of her behavior were coming from the fact of being a single child, suddenly matched up with a random cohabitant, and which were supernatural in nature. Totally agree.
He goes on to say, hey, Giles has a TV. He's shallow like us. I intended to record my message today before the deadline, but I feel under the weather today and don't sound very good. I hope a written one isn't enough, but I might have to challenge Penny to read it with a Polish accent. Are you kidding me? I feel like that would be so offensive.
True. Well, that's a good point.
I'm just going to read it with my own normal accent, which some people say has a hint of Boston in it, but I don't hear it. I'm really excited about the new episodes, but kicking myself for not commenting on the previous ones. You know what, Piotr? It's a marathon.
It's all
not
good.
A sprint.
It's
there
all
are
good.
so many episodes coming. We're always going to be here for you.
Mm-hmm.
As a wise man once said, plunge and move on.
That sounds
Harsh
dirty.
light of day. Spike is back. The most tolerant guy in the world for dating Harmony. I know he's a villain, but I felt giddy for him when he found the Gem of Amara after many hours of handling sexy power tools. I understand that feeling of having broken the rules to become impervious to the usual limitations. My other go-to scene that evokes it in the movies is the one when Tony Stark took his new Iron Man suit for a spin, or when Neo sees the Matrix. Buffy had her giddy, let's test my new power moment in the Earshot episode, and let's not forget Mayor Wilkins, except in this case, there was no excitement of going out to uselessly check out the new abilities. Letting a vampire slice him in half with a sword was more of a calculated scientific test. If I was in his position, I would go out parkouring on rooftops with no consequences. Yeah, that's kind of like what Spider-Man does in every Spider-Man movie. Parker, the poop head. Come to think of it, I don't even know what was the purpose of this character. He doesn't drive the plot line at all, aside from making Buffy seem vulnerable and clueless. Maybe it serves as a public announcement. Watch out for the pitfalls of hookup culture, kids, as if JW was a great authority to give such advice. The way we view morality can be subjective. It's not about the number of partners we engage with. Incels choose not to engage with any partners at all. I don't know if they choose, but anyway. Choose not to engage with any partners at all, and they still manage to be misogynistic a-holes about it. Nothing can be labeled as intrinsically immoral out of context as long as honesty is in the mix. If Parker made his intentions clear to others beforehand instead of saying stuff like, "My mom is coming to visit," it would have been perfectly fine. This lifestyle is a totally normal choice people make. We call it polyamory. The main principle, as it is in all aspects of our life, is treat others the way they want to be treated. Buffy missed all the red flags because being enchanted by a crush creates major blind spots, and her insecurity about relationships transpired again, especially when she panicked seeing the empty spot next to her when she woke up. Oh no, did he go bad like Angel? No, he didn't. He already was a toenail dude to start with. The insecurity makes us believe that we are the ones who screwed up. It was sad to watch Buffy being so apologetic to his lying weasel. The poophead principle was hard for her to grasp because she still had feelings for him and couldn't wrap her head around the fact that a person she was intimate with would do such a thing. And finally, that party at the Wolf House. How do we get an invite? Yeah, it's true. Like that awesome band. That looked like a good party. That will be all for now. I hope you are well and your year will be bountiful and peaceful, despite of you know what. Yes.
Thanks,
Thank
you
you,
too,
Peter.
Peter. I hope you're feeling better.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear your voice on future voicemails. Speaking of voicemails, we have one from Steve.
Hello, still slaying. This is Steve, and I'm just watching Living Conditions trying to get caught up with the podcast, and I realized something that I didn't hear you mention on the podcast from last week, that Buffy's closet has a sliding lock on the outside of the door. Who's she going to lock in there? Is she afraid the weapons are going to get out by themselves? Okay, finished that one, so on to Harsh Light of Day. Oh, I love the quick reference to the fact that Oz and his band are going to L.A. because I think this is the one that we're going to have a crossover with Angel, right? Oh, and Harmony's back. Boy, that's right, she's a vampire and she's biting Willow. Oz to the rescue. Okay. Oh, that's right, and Buffy and Parker, and she's telling him a lot of secrets. Well, that she drowned, at least. Uh-oh, Anya wants to have the relationship conversation. I forgot that Spike is her quote-unquote boyfriend, and she wants him to kill Willow and tell him this is for my sweet girl. And they're looking for something, right? Oh, Buffy just encountered Spike and Harmony with their next friend. Oh, and this one's already been bitten because he's got marks on his neck. Remember this. Why Drew left him. Oh, and Harmony mentioned the Gym of Amara. Whoa. Anya in Xander's basement and looking hot. And slightly naked now. I forgot. What a great line. It might be a little dated now from Spike. Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. On second thought, go do that. And do Melanie and the kids at the same time. Harmony talked about making Antonio Banderas a vampire. Okay, I'm going to let you all break down the Anya Xander business-like talk of sexual intercourse. I think your thoughts are going to be better and more complete than mine. How does Anya is able to make fabric softener sound sexy? Just saw Buffy Sherman tell her, flashed her left hand. Is she still wearing the Claudia ring that she got from Angel? I just saw the hand again. I guess not. I guess she's wearing 2 rings on her left hand. Oh, answering machines. I remember answering machines and leaving messages for people. And, of course, we now have Buffy preparing to make the quote-unquote walk of shame from Parker's dorm room. But at least he didn't turn into a monster, quote-unquote. And we have the contrasting Anya and Xander in the afterglow. And the third contrasting Spike and Harmony. I love syphilis more than you. Okay, Spike just called Harmony a bent. I don't know what that's slang for. And Parker has not called yet. Of course, Spike thinks he has the Jurumar around his neck. Not. The cross still burns. Of course, he stakes Harmony, but she has the gem. Oh, and she overhears Parker telling the same story about his dad to another girl. Buffy, I mean. Oh, what a jerk. Making it feel like it's her fault that you're a jerk. Jerk Parker. And Anya is obviously not over Xander either. That look, Emma Caulfield played that so well. Oh, and Buffy still got it. She's still a better fighter than Spike, but the stunt double is obviously as tall as James Marsters. But she got the ring off his finger, but of course he's back in the sewers. All right, and Oz is going to take the ring to L.A., and Buffy and Willow are having their girl time, and I've gone long, so talk to you next week.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks,
I love
Steve.
that we can hear the episode in the background.
I know.
Yeah,
That
and
is
and
fun.
I think the
Yeah.
well, I may be misunderstanding you, Steve.
bent-
She has a lock on the outside of her closet so that she can lock it so that her roommate Kathy can't get in and take her stuff. Which typical Buffy fashion, she forgot to lock the closet.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
Buffy.
with the weapons in there and everything.
But in
Yeah.
my understanding of a bent from looking it
Yeah,
up,
I think
when
it's
I watched this episode again, is like a really derogatory term for a woman. Basically, like somewhat harsher than
this show
could be harsher.
This
than
show
bitch.
gets away with a lot of swear words or sort of slang that's British that if Americans truly understood those slang words, they would be banned the same way that, toenail words are banned, because bloody is they
Like,
say
effing.
it constantly on the show. And
Yeah.
it's similar. JW employed an even smarter technique for the show Firefly, where all of the swear words are in Chinese. And so they were able to just swear on the show.
makes sense.
It's a smart strategy.
Special.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's really good. But I've never heard that word bent anywhere except for on Buffy. So it's good
have
to
on
know that it's really, really insulting, in case I ever want to insult
I've heard like
somebody
get
in the
bent,
UK.
but I haven't heard it.
It's not
in the way
bent,
he
it's
used it.
bent.
Yeah.
It's B-I-N-T.
Oh, bent. Oh,
Yeah.
that completely passed me over.
I think it's like the C word.
That makes sense.
Which they use
Like
in the
our
UK
C word, not
rampantly.
their C word.
Oh my god, I know.
Yeah.
The way that we
It's
use
less harsh
Ditka.
there.
They use the C word, but
They do. America is surprisingly conservative. I guess not surprisingly in some ways.
Well, little
puritanical. Thank you.
over here.
Compared to most of the world.
We'll kill children in schools, but don't
100%.
say the C word.
100%. Yes. Like what is this?
Oh god.
Yep. Thanks,
Okay,
Steve.
before we get into gun control, I'm going to call it as the end of the main part of the podcast. And if you want to hear us talk spoilers, then, stay tuned at the end for the Watcher's Diaries.
Woohoo! And, of course, if you'd like to join the conversation, you can find all of our contact information at podcastica.com and in the show notes for each of our episodes. Also at podcastica.com, you'll find links to all of our social media pages and all of our other shows.
So many Podcastica podcasts to choose from. I know I've mentioned Squid Game Cast on here before. I also just this morning listened to the latest Walking Dead rewatch podcast in preparation because I'm going to be guesting on that for the next episode. So I've got to be up to speed on Walking Dead. What are you guys listening to lately?
I have been all in on Squid Game.
That's been my main one too. Squid Game's really good.
Yep.
It's really fun.
I did go back and listen to some of the coverage of the latest season of Cobra Kai, because I've had a lot of fun kind of playing catch up on that one here and there. And I think it's fun to listen to because their enthusiasm for that show comes through so much. And if you're a fan at all of Cobra Kai or the Karate Kid franchise, I definitely recommend it. And if you like what we do, give us a 5-star rating, a review, or a like, follow, and subscribe. Next time, we'll be covering Angel Season 1, Episode 3, In the Dark. Thanks, everyone, and...
It happened, right? Did it happen with Parker?
Yeah, it happened.
Well, and details. I mean, not details. I don't need a diagram, but like maybe a blurry watercolor.
Willow's so cute.
She is cute. All right, that's the end of the non-spoiler section. And if you want to avoid spoilers, now's the time. Stop listening. Turn off your whatever phone, computer, TV, however, Alexa, however you listen to us. And on to the Watcher's Diaries.
Dun, dun.
It's too bad we can't sneak a look at the Watcher Diaries. I'm sure it's full of fun facts to know and tell.
Yeah. That's too bad. That stuff is private.
Also, Giles keeps them in his office, in his personal files.
Most importantly, it would be wrong.
There is so much good Harmony to come in future seasons.
Oh,
because she
yeah.
joins the cast of Angel, and it is so
fantastic. Also, the main
best
thing that
additions.
I was trying to keep my mouth shut about is when, Penny, you were talking about how Spike clearly, like, there's a little bit of jealousy in his jabs towards Buffy about Parker.
Yeah.
And which we see when he makes Harmony dress up as Buffy as kind of like this weird role-playing scenario.
You wonder if maybe Spike subconsciously hooked up with Harmony in the first place because she sort of kind of resembles Buffy.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh no, now I'm with this like annoying person.
like
but
Buffy bot.
at least I can have a lot of sex with her, and that's fun.
Buffy bot
Buffy
storyline
bot.
is
Ugh.
so messed up.
So gross.
Ugh.
But Harmony continues to be a joy for the rest of this season and in season 5 when she tries to be her own boss and get minions and everything, and it's it's so fun and delightful.
So
And
she is pretty fantastic.
she's great. There's a hair pulling thing that I misremembered as happening in this episode, but it's in a
I
future
thought it was
episode.
happening in this episode too.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess it's when she has her own gang or something.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And she's just like, she can't keep her mouth shut. Like, you'll see when we get the gem of Amara.
So
She's just
funny.
she's just not very bright.
She's a terrible villain, but a great one at that. Like at the same
Yeah.
time.
I think that's why
love
she's
it.
endearing to me because
Yep.
she's so bad at being bad.
She's adorable.
Like,
I just love her. I can't help it.
And she's not a well-meaning dum-dum. Like, there's a long history in TV and movies of, like, lovable dum-dums, right? Like,
She's not a very nice person.
she's
even
not
as a human.
Jason Mendoza. She's not Woody from
Jason.
Cheers.
Love
You know,
Jason.
she's not that kind of,
current
like,
references only.
heart of gold. Dope. She's
True.
in high school. She was mean, and
Oh, yeah.
now she's a vampire and has no soul, and she's still kind of mean. She's just so dumb that it's funny.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I think she was introduced to be a foil to Cordelia as Cordelia grew out of her role
Yeah.
into someone who is more realized and more multidimensional. And I think that I could be wrong. I think that sort of character dynamic and that character foundation was what they went on to use in the Vampire Diaries for Caroline.
Yeah.
So it's a character that starts out vapid and very self-interested. I mean, she's 16, I think. So, I mean, it's, par for the course. But then you see her develop go from a mean girl, so to speak, into more of a fully realized person.
Yeah.
So, like, whenever I think about Cordy and Harmony, I think of them together as those foils with each other. And then thinking about where the shows go from there is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I
Harmony,
also
when
love-
she joins Angel, is so delightful.
Oh my gosh.
It's like
it was
Spike
genius.
can't get rid of her.
Oh my gosh.
I also
so
love
funny.
when Spike questions or when Parker asks if Spike is an ex-boyfriend of
Oh, and Buffy
Buffy's,
just cracks up.
She just cracks up. I'm like, just you
right.
wait, Buffy.
Not now, but in the future.
Yeah. And then I got a little like icked out when I'd forgotten his relationship with Harmony was so toxic and abusive.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh gosh, I guess we all
Speaking
should
of
have seen this coming,
abusive,
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like what his thing with Buffy afterwards.
That's such
They're-
a complicated situation.
Their dynamic is really messed up. And
Yeah,
and
it's
also
really unhealthy.
the inclusion of superpowers in the mix just it models things that I hope that young viewers don't think are good. Because
Right.
the
Yeah.
Buffy relationship with Spike, there's a lot of like sort of rough sex and violence mixed in, and it looks sort of sexy and exciting, but in real life that would be horrible.
It's true.
And I don't want people to think it's a relationship to admire.
That is what's hard, because honestly, some of those scenes between them,
They're
they
hot.
are freaking
Yeah.
hot. And I always have such complex feelings. I'm just like, damn, like the scene when they literally bring that house down.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh gosh, why is this so like
Well, so like their
appealing?
rough sex and the violence in their relationship, to me, that's not the worst part of it. It's it's outside of that.
Yeah.
It's how they treat each other when they're not having sex.
Yeah,
And
they're
it's like,
mean.
oh no,
That's
again,
true.
yeah, like this is a sexual preference or a kink. Again, you guys, like, you're meant to talk about this.
Yeah.
And like there's a lid for every pot, but it doesn't seem that way. It seems like those are two broken people who are just trying to feel something.
Yeah.
And yeah, they can manage when they're having sex, and that was like
I still
hot and
think
awesome. It's the outside of it that felt icky.
I will
And I was like, oh
never
no.
ever forgive them for the little bit of a trigger warning for the scene where Spike like no question sexually assaults Buffy. I
100%.
don't think it was in
And
his character.
It sounds like from interviews
I
that
hate
James
it.
Marsters has not forgiven it either.
Oh yeah.
It
He
sent him
hates
into
it.
therapy.
Yeah.
He couldn't
Yep.
handle it. And
Which is the appropriate response.
Exactly.
To having to, yeah, because you have to be that character.
Ugh.
And we can talk more about when we get like to that episode and stuff. JW has been very vocal of he wanted people to hate the character Spike, and that was how
I
far
think
he thought
was
he had to
just
go.
jealous that people
Yeah,
were
and it
giving him
was
all
I mean, he was trying to find ways. He's like, he kept pushing this character to make the audience hate him, and he's like, now I know they'll hate him after this.
Nope.
But that is the thing. Like,
Congratulations,
it's
we
not
just hate
in his
you
character.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like Angelus was a rapist. That's for certain.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
mentioned numerous times
Yeah.
by Angelus himself.
Which
Spike
is why
has,
he is
to my
constantly
knowledge,
living in pain and shame. Like
yeah,
wants his soul
and
back.
to my knowledge, Spike has never said that he ever did that.
No.
But he
so
was
like it
always
doesn't even
a
track his character.
romantic, like in real life, and even as a vampire.
Yeah,
Like
he was all
there
about
was
Drusilla.
something different about
I doubt
him.
he cheated on her.
No.
Like he seemed completely
Yeah.
dedicated to her, and I don't think that he got any joy from, like, he says at some point in season 5 of Angel, he's like, for me, it was never about being evil. Like for Angelus, it was about being evil and causing people pain. And
Like
for
actually
Spike, it
wanting
was
to
about
destroy the
having
world.
fun. And he didn't find sexual assault to be fun.
Yeah.
And so that's not
Oh, it
something he
makes me
pursued
so
as a
mad.
vampire. But Angelus,
Yeah.
it was about how can I cause the most pain? So of course that was part of what he did when he
Which
was
is
Angelus.
so demented.
Yes. It is dark. The choice at the end of season 6, after that horrible assault of Buffy, that Spike leaves town and goes and gets his soul. I don't know if JW was still trying to make people dislike Spike, because then he goes and gets his soul, and all of us are like, the only interpretation you can get from that is that what he did to Buffy was so bad that even a vampire was like, I need to change on a fundamental level.
Yeah. And it was something I wonder if the other writers, because he had sort of been phased out towards the end of Buffy. Like he was still obviously an executive producer, and all that stuff. But from what I understand, I could be wrong, they started to phase him out, and other writers were coming in because I think it was like that season was just a hot mess. So like they were trying to filter that out and get a more centered thing. So like, I mean, when he comes back, yeah, he's like very remorseful and tortured. And so yeah, I think they said like, okay, we'll do this, but we're going to take him in a different direction. Because he did something so awful for him, he is going to get a soul and like, follow it to that that ending. Because I remember, there was a lot going on with JW, or they had to minimize his role on the show, at least on set and stuff. Like, he couldn't be left alone with the actress who played Dawn, not for any sexually inappropriate things. It's more of just the way he would terrorize the women on his set. They didn't want him.
He was just a jerk.
Being verbally abusive to a child because she was underage, Michelle Trachtenberg. So yeah, I think they were holding on to his baby, and he was collecting all the checks, but I think they were starting to filter him out because
I think he had also started trying to. He was full-time working on Firefly. So,
which another great show.
He left Buffy and Angel in the capable hands of Jane Espenson and went over and started working on Firefly, which tragically only had one season. And, we all wish that there was more of it.
Love the show.
It's a great show. Anyway, JW. Bleh, bleh.
Yes. Yeah. Forever. Bleh.
Bleh. I think we've done the damage we came here to do. I am very much looking forward to the crossover episode that we'll cover next week, and I hope we get some great feedback. We've already gotten some pieces of feedback for it, and that's it. That's the complete end of the show. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and until next time, I'm Penny.
And I'm Sam.
And I'm Kara.
Keep slaying!